I think she's looking at you.
I think she's looking at you.
If you say so. You're allowed to be happy, you know. Even just for one night. I mean, just for an hour.
Do you think an hour with her is what I need to be happy?
Probably wouldn't hurt.
She needs to get laid big time.
Hey, this is the Sword and the Pen Reflections. It is my casual alternative to that channel. If you're here, you know the deal. We are looking at Amazon's Wheel of Time, Season 3, Episode 3, and its corresponding chapters that I forgot to look up, but I will display them here if I bother to look them up. We're gonna jump right into it, but before we keep going, please like, subscribe, and comment. Even if it's just with an emoji, it really does help boost this video in the algorithm. Or if you're feeling super generous, check out my Patreon, Ko-fi, or hit the money heart thanks button down below. You can become a subscriber, or you can leave me a one-time tip. Also, if you don't see the money heart thanks button down below, it means that Amazon is claiming this video, as they have for so many of my Wheel of Time videos.
Not today! Not today, Nibs!
Even though I try to manipulate the heck out of all of their footage, they tend to claim more of me sitting in front of my bookshelf than they claim of their own show. And I just don't know how to fight that, but I do my best. Anyway, that's all I gotta say. Let's just get into it. Okay, so in the cold opening, we see Lanfear is trying to form an alliance with Ravine, who, surprise, is Gabriel, and we get the little reveal that he's been compulsing Morghese and everybody else that he has come into contact with to believing that he's been in a relationship with Morghese for 10 plus years, even though he's only been out of his seal for about a month. Also at this little get-together is Samael, and they all arrived through portals. After some pleasantries and a little bit of bickering, we find out that Lanfear has brought them here to propose an alliance. Anyway, Lanfear is proposing this alliance because she's afraid that Moghedien is going to creep up on them one at a time in the dark, basically, and take them out one at a time till she gets to the top. Samael clearly does not like Lanfear and is saying, like, how come you're not nameless? This is basically the heir of the Dark One, the one who is in charge of all of the Forsaken, the one who is speaking directly to the Dark One, taking orders. And since Ishamael has passed, Lanfear is kind of assuming that she's going to get this role, but Samael has revealed that she's not getting any information from the Dark One directly, and she's like, I don't know why he hasn't come to me. Maybe he's still mourning the loss of Ishamael. Do the Forsaken think that the Dark One would mourn the loss of one of the Forsaken? I don't know.
We're a very sensitive group.
Ravine is kind of playing the politician in all of this. He's teasing with the other two, but he's for the most part just trying to keep the peace between them, which is unusual to see a Forsaken doing this. But again, I like Ravine, the Gabriel guy, so much because his scenes were so positive in the show as opposed to all this angst that we get everywhere else, that I'm on his side, kind of. But yeah, he's trying to make sure that Lanfear and Samael don't tear each other to pieces, because he's like, we did not win last time because we were at each other's throats all the time.
The proposal is an alliance, then, to take out Moghedien. I'll consider presenting it to the others.
Others?
Grendel and Samarak, they sent their regards, by the way. They were a bit hurt you didn't invite them to this little reunion. You know me, always prattling on with someone.
Ever the politician.
You can see that Lanfear was not expecting that, and I'm not sure why he would reveal this. Usually, at least my experience in the books, is we would see that the Dark Friends and the Forsaken, they work mostly on their own and don't want other people to know what advantages they have. They're trickstery like that. It makes them a little bit more intimidating because you don't know what cards they hold, and they're working against each other as well as against our heroes. But anyway, Lanfear is basically like, well, whatever, think about what I have said, because you know it's the right idea. Like, we definitely need to be worried about Moghedien. And then she blows him a kiss, and a portal appears right behind her, and she right through the portal. So that is how Moiraine has been transporting like Lan was in season 1. So this is how she does it, and then Samael does the same thing and takes off. So at least they've got an explanation for why the Forsaken can do it. Still wondering how the heck Lan can do it, but whatever, that's fine. I'm just teasing about all this stuff at that point. I actually liked the dialogue in this scene. It was a lot smoother than in other scenes. They did their best to not just explicitly tell us things, but rather to let it come out through how these characters interact with each other. For instance, I didn't need anybody to say, Samael hates Lanfear, and Lanfear does not really like Samael. She actually kind of looks down on him because Samael was so hostile to Lanfear right off, and she kind of wasn't afraid of him and was ready to go toe-to-toe with him if that's what he wanted. And I don't need to know, although they did say it a couple times, that Gabriel is always the politician, always politicking, because that was a reference to him and how he deals with his plans, like how he orchestrates his plans. Like he's going to work his way into this world politically and gain power politically. But he also was doing that among the Forsaken. Like, hey, we should not be at each other's throats. That's how we lost last time. Like that is a good way for him to kind of maintain the peace. But then again, it goes a bit against his character as it is established in this scene to reveal that he's in conversations with these others. Unless I could say like maybe he's doing it so that he doesn't come across as someone who's hiding something. But that's very unforsaken-like. So anyway, the other two leave and it's just Ravine or Gabriel left. I know I'm going to refer to him as Gabriel a lot because I just liked him. We see that Mo Gideon was in hiding in this room. And I did think that if you are a channeler, other channelers of the same sex can actually detect when you're there. This is a book thing, but the show has not been doing this. So I would have thought Lanfear would be able to detect that Mo Gideon was listening in. But I may be missing something from the magic. Maybe there's a way that they can sort of disguise themselves or shield themselves from being sensed or whatever. But we see that obviously Ravine knew that she was in hiding, and they have had conversations together because she's insulted that Lanfear called her a coward, because Lanfear did. But she's like, Ravine, you sounded like you believed her when you believed Lanfear when Lanfear said that I would kill you. And he's like, well, come on, you probably are going to try and kill me at some point. And she just goes, ha ha ha. And he's like, ha 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 ha. And then he like caresses her face. This is basically the same conversation that Ishamael had with Lanfear back in season 2 when they were like playing with that dream doll of Rand. It's basically the same conversation, which is fine, I guess. I mean, if they're always keeping in mind that you're probably going to come after me, then when they form an alliance, the Forsaken that is, they're going to have that in mind going into it. I really want to see at some point that we have Forsaken who are working together, and then right when one of them is most vulnerable and it's most advantageous to the other, that one is going to come in and take out the other Forsaken. Like, I'm waiting for this to happen in the books as well, because I do like this idea. I want that moment where you have the Forsaken taking each other out, and then you have the good guys going like, all right, I guess we don't have to deal with that anymore. Final note on this scene, though, is I mentioned this back in, I believe it was season 1, maybe it was season 2, that you do a scene like this, revealing who your bad guys are and that they have a plan, so that even when you are doing mundane, boring things with your main characters, you know that the bad guys are getting closer. They're coming for them. So it doesn't lose any tension, even though our main characters don't appear to be in danger. I'm hoping and expecting that what we'll see as a result of this first scene is that we see them working in the background. We can see evidence of them doing stuff to come after our good guys, and not have something like we had back in season 2, where Ishamael's like, ooh, we've got a plan, but don't worry, even if it doesn't work out, like everything will be fine. And then we didn't really see evidence of what his plan was until basically the final episodes. But anyway, so I'm just hoping that we get more action with the bad guys doing stuff. Unfortunately, I do know that Samael, this is the only time we see this character. So at the time of recording this, episode 6 has already come out, and Samael dies in episode 6. So he appears here, and he's very hostile towards Lanfear, and then we never see him again until episode 6, when he just pops up and doesn't do a whole lot, but then is killed by Rand. It was not a satisfying kill for me because Samael was never intimidating to me because this is all we got of him. If you want a confrontation between two characters to really mean something, then you either have to have a character who appears to be so clever when they do finally appear or so competent at what they're doing that your good guys take a major loss in the process of winning. And I know people are going to say, what about the little kid? Rand is the one who killed the little kid, not Samael. And plus it was just a little kid that we just randomly came across. But what you want to do is you want to build up this character as somebody who's really intimidating. So either when they finally do appear, they are really tough or really smart and our good guys take a major loss in their victory. Like we survived and technically won, but just barely. Sort of like in The Empire Strikes Back in Star Wars. They don't win in The Empire Strikes Back, but they survive. Han Solo, we don't know. I mean, could you imagine watching that show, or watching that movie in theaters, and then like, wait, we've got to wait years before we get the next installment? Like, what happened to Han? He's just frozen in time. That's kind of what you would want. You would want there to be such a severe loss there that we felt the pain of this character. And we don't really, I mean, the actors do a good job pulling it off as best as they can, but we still don't get that. Anyway, that was a very long discussion about this intro, but I think that's all I have to say about it. So we're going to move on, and I will have less to say about some of the other things because I'm going to try not to complain too much about the little bits of dialogue. Although I will have some things to say, I just know it. All right, the first arc we're going to look at is Elayne and Nynaeve. It starts with Varen showing them the two Black Aja who are prisoners in the 13th Requiem. The girls state that they have the advantage of being able to lie because they have not become full sworn Aes Sedai. But we do see that Elayne has her accepted ring. So she's gone through the arches. So that has happened off screen. We never got to see that happen. And they start interrogating these two Black Aja. The ladies basically give them conflicting information. One of them says, go this, Liandrin went to this place. And the other one says, no, Liandrin went to this other place. And the girls don't really know what to do with any of this. And in the end, both of the Black Aja are trying to convince them why they should be believed over the other Black Aja. The one thing that I was not so thrilled about in this is that Elayne and Nynaeve didn't really take advantage of their advantage. They could have done so much to manipulate these women into talking, and they did the two most basic things that you can do is say, like, the other ones talked, but they didn't imply anything. They didn't try to prod their prisoner into giving a specific direction of information. They just gave the very general, like, well, we'll kill you if you don't talk. Like, the other one was talking, so we'll kill you. And that's it. And I'm not even sure those were lies, really. Because before, when Siuan was lifting Liandrin up into the air, she was like, you're gonna be stilled and questioned and then executed. So I would feel like that's what they would do to these two women. One note I wanted to make at this point was that we've completely set aside all the drama that happened in the previous episode that was introduced of like Elayne being told she has to leave and Nynaeve was like, oh my gosh, I should have known better than to rely on you. That felt cheap because it never got a resolution between the two women. I mean, at some point, Elayne should have confronted Nynaeve and said something about this, in my opinion. Throwing drama in there to create drama between your characters, it should serve a purpose in the plot. But for this, it was just there, it happens, and then we go about our business as if it didn't happen. So what was the point of it except to create very short-term tension, which just made Nynaeve look really immature too. So I did not like that, and I don't think that they should have done that. Anyway, another note is that this scene does take place in Tyr after Kalendor has been retrieved by Rand. So these two Black Ajas are being held not in the White Tower, but somewhere else. And are they stilled then? I don't think that they've been stilled. I don't know if they're stilled in the show. Maybe they're stilled. Maybe they're just shielded. I'm not sure which one it is. Do the women know how to shield somebody and then tie it off? No. Okay, so they're stilled in the show, but in the books, they aren't. What would be the advantage? It's just odd. It's a little odd. Okay, anyway, I don't want to go too much further into it. If I think of why this would count. I'll put it up in a note. But anyway, in the books, the girls are in Tyr and they're interrogating these girls. And that's because they're the only ones there. There's Moraine who's hanging out here, but there's nobody else. It's just the girls and Moraine. And Moraine is very busy with Rand and trying to get him to go do certain things that he doesn't want to do. In the tower, though, I find it really hard to believe that people are okay with these accepted just doing this. And obviously, Siuan does trust Varen because she has looped Varen into all of this. So in the previous episode, she said, I can't trust anybody except you girls, not even Varen, not even Leanne, I can't trust anybody except you two girls. But now Varen is involved. Now in the book, Siuan did trust Leanne and Varen, and they were all involved in trying to figure out what was going on. Well, not quite like this, but anyway, it's just unusual that they would do this for the show. To say, I cannot trust Varen, but then we jump into this and it's very obvious that Siuan must have trusted her because she told Varen, bring the girls to the prisoners and let them interrogate them. It's unusual. It doesn't make much sense. Final note on this scene. At one point, the girl who is a gray Black Aja says that
I was a member of the Grey Aja before I joined the Black. My life's work was to read people, situations, work out the only path through the most difficult negotiations. I believe you when you say you'll kill us. I know a killer when I see one.
With a mean-looking mug and a ruthless glint in his eye. A stone cold. There. Do. Well. Someone like this?
Maybe I'm forgetting something, but I cannot for the life of me recall a moment when Nynaeve killed anybody except a Trolloc in season 1. Has she killed anybody? Did I forget? This is a show-only thing. But Nynaeve has not demonstrated being a competent character at all since season 1. So I'm not sure why anybody would look at her and think that. And really, since coming out of the Arches, so that moment forward, she always looks unsure of herself and like she's curling in on herself. So why would somebody look at that and say, I know that you're a killer? Because anytime that she's, standing up right now, crossing her arms, she looks ridiculous because we know that she's incompetent. So I don't know. It was an unusual thing for that character to say because it's not accurate. This is not what the show or what the audience is seeing. The audience is not seeing somebody who is a killer. The audience is seeing somebody who's just not competent. That's it. Before we continue, please like, subscribe, and comment, even if it's just with an emoji. It's a free way for you to support the channel, and for me, it might bring in some money from all the commercials they keep putting on my videos. Or if you're feeling super generous, check out my Patreon or Ko-fi. I've got links in the description. Or you can hit the money heart thanks button down below. Now, let's get back to it. Anyway, Nynaeve and Elayne decide we can't believe either of these women. Let's go look into Liandrin. What can we investigate about her? And so Nynaeve is taking Elayne to that house where Nynaeve kept her son. And they're looking around. The place has just been totally emptied. They're not there. And we get a brief bit of conversation about Nynaeve and how she kind of liked Liandrin, even though Liandrin turned her over to the Shan-Chan to be enslaved, which is weird. But anyway, so Nynaeve, we're establishing that there's some conflict with Nynaeve about chasing down Liandrin. So my expectation is that the final showdown is going to be Liandrin versus Nynaeve. And if we don't get that, then this setup has no payoff. So the final episode of the season has not come out yet, but that's where it should be going. We should be seeing that happening. Anyway, even though the whole place has been empty, they discover this symbol painted underneath the bed. It's some round thing. And decide, wait a minute, maybe this is a clue as to where they are going. And this is probably the most unearned clue that we see in this whole spiel here. And there was never an indication that Liandrin was devoted to this one religion from Tanchico, but that's what this is. We didn't see her paint this. We didn't see her once reference any gods or spirits or anything to indicate that this is a religion that she follows. And then suddenly there's this. And this is something that really would have benefited the plot to have set up for this, to have something in an earlier episode, even if you just put it in episode 1 of season 3, that we see that she's praying or somebody sees her donning something that is a symbol of mourning that, her culture wears. I don't know, something. But there wasn't enough time because the only time that we saw Liandrin in episode 1 at the tower not being in combat was as she was walking from wherever she was walking before to the Great Hall or the main hall to basically be confronted by Suan, and then battle happens and she leaves. But really, this should have been indicated much earlier. This should have come in season 2 when Nynaeve was talking to Liandrin down by the arches. Maybe that would be a good place to put it. Something. To have this thrown in here out of the middle of nowhere, it just means that there wasn't a lot of advanced thought put into how are we going to get the girls to decide Tanchico is where we need to go. And so they threw this in this episode. Not very satisfying. The girls go back to Varen's library and discover that this symbol is a Tanchico tradition and that Liandrin might be on her way back to Tanchico to paint the same symbol on the ground where her son was born. This is part of a religious ritual where you paint one under the place where your child died, and then one under the place where the child was born. And then this basically encourages the wheel to spit them out again sooner or something. So they come to the conclusion that, oh, so that's where she's going, Tanchico. And then it occurs to them that neither of the 2 Black Aja girls that they interrogated said anything about Tanchico. So maybe they should look into things that they didn't say. And so they go through the drawings that Varen has been doing. She's been cataloging all of the things that were stolen from the 13th Requiary. And they're going to look through all of these drawings and see if there's anything that stands out. And they come across what looks like a Shan-Chan bracelet or cuff, the part of the ADOM. And this is where our clues supposedly intersect, but it's a bit of a stretch, but whatever. Okay, so they say,
Tanchico is near far where the Shan-Chan landed, where they came from centuries ago. And Liandrin's in Tanchico looking for the matching collar.
It really isn't convincing that Elayne remembers these factoids about the Shan-Chan because we, the audience, were not part of discovering and piecing together these clues with the girls. So this ends up being very dissatisfying as a revelation. This could have been fixed with just some simple editing tricks. Have the camera push in on Elayne growing pensive, and over it we hear her memory of maybe Rima in the attic in season 2 repeating that the Shan-Chan came to Falm and Tanchico because they believe that these are the lands from which they originated, and it's in these cities where they developed the ADOM technology long ago. But then we would have had to have that scene in season 2 where Rima actually says these things to the girls, which we didn't have. And then Nynaeve concluding that Liandrin is in Tanchico looking for the matching collar leaps right over how she would conclude that there even is a matching collar, which is why I would have put it in that scene in season 2 with Rima in the attic. Just say it there. It's all just so unearned and disjointed that it feels like the reason Elayne and Nynaeve come to this realization and these conclusions is because the script called for it. Solving a mystery where the clues were not laid out for the audience to take in before doesn't feel like genius or even believable. It just feels contrived.
What'd you do?
I bypassed the compressor.
Huh.
Got Helen Bewley coming in tomorrow. Do you know who she is?
Of course I do.
Yes, she's just been made head of BHDR Industries, so obviously we need to make friends.
I know. BHDR Industries. They're the top makers of that product that has something to do with our company.
Exactly.
I don't know how they would assume that there even is a collar to go with this bracelet thing, but okay, that's how they're doing it here. This is kind of a combination of 2 different investigations. One that took place at the tower where the girls literally just went through the Black Aja ladies' stuff because they lived in the tower, so they got to go through all of their things. I don't know why they didn't do that this time. There they could find stuff about Liandrin and her religion or whatever, and then I don't know anything about this. And then they could go to where Liandrin's son was, find the symbol, and go, hey, we saw that stuff in her room. Maybe... But anyway, okay, that's probably what I would have done. If I was going to do the religious symbol thing, I would have had evidence in Liandrin's bedroom her private quarters, that she was faithful to this religion. And then when they're not able to find any good clues there, they go to the bed. But this would have been an extra scene, but it still would have made it all make more sense anyway. Yeah, so we're combining these two separate pieces of the investigation. One where they were just going through the Black Aja stuff and decided, we need to go to Tyr. And then in the second instance, when they're interrogating the two Aes Sedai, Black Aja Aes Sedai, and then one of them in the book says Tanchico is where where they've gone. Like, that's where you need to go next. I'm not sure why they didn't just have that same sort of thing happen, but anyway, that's all. It's too much to think about at this point. Oh yeah, back to the Tanchico and Falm and the Shan-Chan thing. This is the stretch that's happening here. They realize that Tanchico is near Falm, and Falm is where the Shan-Chan believe that they came from centuries ago. So they think that Liandrin went to Tanchico to look for the matching collar. Like, the fact that they think there must be a matching collar comes out of nowhere. And linking the Shan-Chan to that, and I don't know what they were trying to assume. Were they assuming that the Shan-Chan landed at this place because they were also looking for this collar? I don't really know.
Looking for the matching collar. Elayne.
He's grey.
Like the man who tried to kill me at the White Lion Inn.
I didn't throw him hard enough to kill.
He's been stabbed.
Now, when the girls went to Liandrin's house in the previous scene, before they went, or not to her house, but where she was keeping her son, before they went into his room, we saw that there was a gray man following them. Why didn't he attack them when they were completely isolated away from the tower? Like, why would he follow them back to the White Tower, a place that would have been a lot harder to get into than just into this random empty house in the middle of town? I probably would not have shown the gray man noticing them before they go into this house. I would have shown them leaving the place where the son died, and that's where we see the gray man starting to follow him. That's what I would have left it at. I would not have put it in before. I think that this was just a poorly placed hint that they are being followed by a gray man, but anyway.
He's been stabbed.
What in the name of the light happened here? Dead. Dead as it's possible to be. And more.
Nynaeve is instantly suspicious of Varen, which we didn't really, that doesn't follow what we saw setting this up. Varen is very much in on these girls are investigating the Black Aja. So she's like, Varen, what are you doing here?
I live here.
This is obviously the Brown Aja's library.
I work here, okay? I pretty much live here.
This is where she's been working. It's her office. All of her papers for cataloging what was stolen from the 13th rec place is right here. So it's weird that she's like, why are you here? It's her office. And then Varen turns it around on them, like, what are you doing here?
You don't live here.
Yes, I do.
I live here.
Hi, neighbor.
It's really weird. Like, they both know that they're here. So why are they asking? Anyway, it's just very forced suspicion. The only thing that they could have been suspicious about is the final note. Elayne's like, my head hurts because she hurt her head when they ducked away from the gray man shooting at them. And as they're walking away, Nynaeve's like, we gotta leave here tonight. And she's like, we're not safe here in the tower.
What? Did you not notice what she didn't mention, Elayne?
No.
She never wondered who stabbed him.
I mean, I would have assumed that Varen must have thought that one of the girls stabbed him. But now that you look at it, me, the audience, knowing that it wasn't one of the girls who stabbed them, I'd be like, wait a minute, Varen must have stabbed this guy and then pretended that she didn't know anything about it. Like, why? So people have hinted to me in the comments that there is somebody among the Aes Sedai who is essentially a double agent, working both for the White Tower but also for the Dark One, but is truthfully on the side of the light. And I'm wondering if the show is sort of spoiling that it's Varen. Because I don't know. From the book, we know that Elaida is not among the Black Aja. I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
I wanted to say goodbye.
Goodbye? Nynaeve, what are you talking about?
Elayne and I found something. We think we know where Liandrin's gone.
Liandrin?
I'm not sure why she's telling Matt. He has not, maybe she grew up with him and stuff, but she's supposed to be really afraid of letting anybody know what's going on. And yet here she just divulges this to Matt that, we're tracking down Liandrin, and she doesn't want him to come with, but there's a confrontation with Gowan and Galad and Matt basically beats the crap out of them and then goes off with Nynaeve. And the last scene that we have with Nynaeve and Matt and Elayne is Elayne being upset that Nynaeve told Matt because she didn't tell her brothers what was going on. Like, oh, you get to trust Matt, but I don't get to trust my brothers. Anyway, which she's totally right to be upset about that. And they're getting on a boat headed for Tanchico, and she tells that to Matt. And in the background, we see that Min is following them. So that's basically the end of their little arc. One note that I have to make about this whole thing is that Nynaeve did not stay at the White Tower just to help Matt. When we go back to episode 1, her reasons were, I need to find out why I have this block because I'm of no use to anybody. And we did not see her once in this entire stay at the White Tower after everybody left after episode 1. We didn't see her talking to anybody about that at all. So we just kind of dropped it all together. Like this was not something that she actually pursued on her own. And I'm not really sure why we would introduce that problem at the beginning. Why not just have her, I'm staying here to help Matt because he asked me for help. Like that's a perfectly fine motivation that this young man who I was supposed to be almost like a parent figure to all of these kids, even though she's not much older than they are, but she has assumed that role of the wisdom. She would feel the responsibility to be there with him and ensure that he gets the care that he really needs. I don't know why they didn't do that, but her whole story at the White Tower was just Matt and Elayne. And I know that's all, or, the Black Aja stuff. And I know that is a lot of plot already, but why introduce this other reason for her wanting to stay if we were never going to address it? Not even just a quick scene of her when she was talking to Rima, asking her about blocks, something. So we can see that it's on her mind and it's something she wants to work on. I don't know. Anyway, don't introduce a thread if you're not going to follow through with it. It's going to annoy readers later on, or viewers if you're watching a show and they do it. And I do have to say, I am so annoyed that people talk so loudly about their top secret missions around other people. So when they're going off to the docks, they are talking about they're hunting the Black Aja, they're hunting Liandrin, they're going to Tanchico, where anybody can hear them. Like everybody is doing that in this show. Do they have something against going to a private room and having their conversations there? Or waiting till there's a moment where nobody's around, just not being out in the open where somebody could be listening in, which is what happens in this final moment in their thread because Min is listening in and going with them. The next thread we're going to follow is Elayne. There's a very quick scene of her sitting at her makeup desk, I guess. I don't know what you call these things. And she's in pain. She's experiencing tremors, and she looks at a bracelet that is on her arm. I think that they're trying to indicate that she's having a premonition here because later on she reveals that she's a seer too, but we don't really get anything. Anyway, I do expect, because we get more attention on this bracelet and this pain and her foreseeing and how it's all related somehow, that we need to see what that is by the end of this episode. Otherwise, it's just something that you introduce and then you solve way too late in the grand story. I just have to point out these gorgeous closet doors. It may not be your style, but it is my style. If I was like a millionaire and lived in Morocco. But I love this aesthetic.
Delicious. Alice! Alice left with Queen Morgaze. Can I help you get ready?
Yes, you had best. Today is a very important day.
Next, we have a scene of Elayne trying to go and see Siuan, but she is stopped on the balcony outside of Siuan's office by Leanne and Varen. And these three women have the most spectacular hairdos in the whole series so far. Elayne's looks like some sort of a beehive. Varen has a perfect swirly. And Leanne's hair looks like a spool of string like we saw in Mousetrap.
Hello, ladies. How magnificent. Welcome.
I'm just gonna have to refer to these ladies as beehive, spoolie, and swirly from now on because their hair is so intricate and so, it's lovely. They've done a great job with this, but it's like, man, they put all three of them in the same room, and it stands out.
Are you interested in spooling?
Elayne wants to come and see Suan, but yeah, she's stopped by Leanne and Varen. And Varen says that there's some rule that you can only request a meeting with the Amerlin seat if you're one of the sitters, and Elayne is no longer one of the sitters. And Elayne basically says,
dude, if you cross me now, I will never forget it.
They basically brush her off and she's unable to go forward. When the women approach somebody of the other Ajas, they seem to just walk in and insult the other people.
Wherein, said I, what could have possibly brought you to these high chambers? A fire in the library? A sweet cake shortage in the kitchen?
And what?
She's basically calling Varen fat. It's so rude. It's so mean. Like, you cannot be this hostile towards women you're supposed to be working with. This is not indicative of a tower that would be able to function. This happens in like teen dramas when you're trying to depict like, oh, you know, all these different cliques are against each other. But when you reach a certain point in adulthood, you understand that you have to be civil. You can't just walk into somebody else's room and insult everybody. And that is how all of these women address people when they walk into their, anyway, you'll see what I mean. So Elayne goes to the red common room where all the reds are hanging out, and she's got different gifts. She tries to offer strawberries to one and then jewelry to the one who's the highest.
Oh. Keep it, Elayne. It's too gaudy for me. Suits you much better.
They're just constantly insulting each other. Like, this is not how adults would be able, like, you cannot function this way. I'm sorry. Like, people do not wear their hatred for another person on their sleeve like this, except in very rare cases, and it doesn't usually last peacefully for very long. Anyway, Tsutama asks, like, what are you hoping to buy with these gifts? And Elayne is like, well, I'm proposing that we call for a vote to cage the dragon, because she doesn't like that the Reds have been basically pushed down in ranks as far as importance in the tower goes, and they used to be very important in the tower, hunting down men who can channel and making sure that they don't destroy the world again. But Tsutama points out that, you know what, after Liandrin and what she did, we need to be very careful about how we regain our good reputation here, and you are making that very difficult. So everybody recognizes that she has this past with Suan. I believe that's what is being implied here. But there's also hints of this is Tsutama feeling threatened by Elayne's presence, or feeling superior to Elayne because she is now the highest and Elayne is not the highest anymore, because Elayne also indicated that she was once the highest. So they push her out, or excuse her. They literally just tell her, like, go on, you're making this harder, so get out. And it's almost sad that they're treating this former leader of their Aja like dirt. But as she's walking out, I was so glad this happened.
Swan locked you out of the hall, but that you didn't fight for the seats our Red Sisters earned centuries ago with their blood and their lives, that falls squarely on you.
So I'm glad that she won this encounter. Now, one thing I have to say is she is so obvious about her attempts to regain a seat in the Red Aja, like to be in a position of power again. There's no subtlety to it at all. It's as if the writers wrote this believing that we wouldn't be able to pick up on that if they weren't just blatant with it. And that's not in line with what happens in the books. They are more subtle, they are more clever, and they certainly are never just very obvious about what they are trying to do. And it's in the dialogue, because when they ask her, like, what are you trying to do? Like, why are you bringing us these gifts? And she's like,
I don't want anything except to see the Reds return to our rightful place at the heart of this tower, like we were when I was the highest.
there could be other ways to do this better, and I would go through them, except that I feel like it's so obvious, I'm just not even gonna try. Moving on. In the next scene, we've got Elayne in her room, and Min comes in to bring her, I don't know, fresh pressed laundry. And Elayne reveals to Min I know that you're a seer, and Min makes it obvious that she herself does not enjoy her ability or think of it as anything good. It's a curse, essentially. And Elayne's like, you don't have to just sit there and watch things happen. You know, just because you see what's going to happen doesn't mean that you're just a bystander. She's like, you could be active in it. And she says, I saw that the throne of Andor was going to be essential in the last battle. So I didn't just sit there and let that happen. I got involved. I went and I helped Queen Morghese rise to the throne, and I've been her advisor since then. Like, so she basically says that you can do stuff before and after to make things happen. And even though I like this conversation, it does undermine something in Min's arc, which we will get to in Min's arc when we do that for this episode. But anyway, that's what she does. And then we're going to get into her next, I am obvious in my strategy for dethroning Siuan and whatever, all of her chicanery and machinations, all this stuff. She's just too obvious about it.
I know Varen and Lyanna sent you here to watch me, to report on everything I do and say. But this, can it stay just between us?
Yes.
The highest of the Red Azra will soon call a vote in the Hall of the Sitters. Perhaps the most important one in Tower history. Swan Santre will lose. And my Red Sisters will restore the Tower to its original mission. Finding and caging the Dragon Reborn.
It's a secret!
I'm not sure why this couldn't have been a conversation that Elayne had with one of her own servants and then Min overhears it. And then we later see that Elayne and the servant were planning to have Min overhear it. That would have been more subtle. It's not a whole lot better, but it certainly would have been more subtle than her just going, I know you're a spy, but let's keep a secret, you and me. Like, please don't tell Siuan about this. Min would be very stupid if she did not tell Siuan. By the way, she told me that she knows I'm a spy for you, so she obviously wanted me to get this information to you. So the worst thing that you could do would be to act on this information, as this information would persuade you, or it would compel you to act. Like, you should do the opposite, probably. But we later see that Siuan gets this information and acts exactly as you should if you believed this. Like, it's odd. It's very simplistic. It is not subtle. It is not clever. It's very disappointing. I don't know why this was done like this, when it could have been fixed so easily just by having Min overhear the conversation that Elayne is having with somebody. Or maybe Min finds a letter that Elayne is writing, which would be obviously a fake letter or something. I don't know. There's a bunch of ways you could have done this, and it wouldn't have been so obvious. Oh yeah, and Min at some point during this conversation does ask, hey, does your bracelet have something to do with your foretelling? And Elayne's like, sort of. So they're setting up that this bracelet has some sort of a significant meaning. I have no clue. None of this was in the book. But I am expecting that at the end of this season, we should have a lot more information about this bracelet, because this is the second time that we're bringing it up and we're seeing a lot of attention being drawn to it. So that's that.
Lyanna Sedai.
Are you interested in spooling?
I didn't think you knew your way to the Red Quarters.
I followed the rats.
Why are they so rude? And it's like walking into somebody else's territory and insulting them right away. This is so petty and so small of these people to do this. I don't know. It does not make them look badass or unafraid or cool. It makes them look petty. I pity them for how petty they are. So she shows up to deliver the message that the Amyrlin has heard that you guys want to be more active. You know, you want to be doing your job. And she's like, so we've heard that there is a false dragon off somewhere else, and we're going to send you to go do that. So you need to go to the Amyrlin seat right now and get your orders from her, because you're leaving tonight. So Siuan took the bait. And I do have a question. So Elayne is sitting there in this room. So she's been welcomed back into the common room. Like, how did she get welcomed back? It's awkward. It feels like there's a missing scene here, like maybe where she made peace with Sutama or something, because Sutama basically said, go away now. We don't want you hanging out here. Like, why would Elayne go back to this room and hang out with them? And the reason that she did, I think, is for convenience of the script, because we end this scene with Sutama walking away with Liandrin, following Liandrin off to the Amerlin Seat's office, and looking very unsure of herself. I did not like the body language that Sutama showed in this moment, and I have a feeling she was told to do this because it's a deliberate moment in the blocking. She gets up, she's following Liandrin, but then she pauses and turns to look back at the red nervously, and you can see her fidgeting with her hand, even just very uncertain. And then she goes. This does not make her look like a very strong leader. I am not sure that I like this. And then you get Elayne giving, again, the most obvious, like she's just so obvious.
Who do you think will replace her as highest of the Red Aja?
Did I just say that out loud?
Temporarily, of course. Sadea's on the other side of the world. Unless we can afford to lose a sitter for months and be worth only 2 votes in the hall.
You're right, sister. It appears the Red Aja is in need of a new sitter.
What you want? I want Galena or Galinda or whoever she is to not invite Elayne. Like, that it would be the appropriate response to this, because Elayne is being so dang obvious. The actress who plays Elayne, I love her. I think she does a great job with her character. But the way she sits there after Galena's like, you're right, we are gonna have to find somebody else. She just looks so victorious and like, oh, I wonder who that will be. That's so goofy. This is such a beautiful set, and it's filmed very nicely. There's been some massive improvements in the cinematography and the sets and the costumes, everything from season 2, like massive. But the writing is still this. I think it would benefit the showrunners, if they're going to keep doing this, to bring in somebody who is really sharp with dialogue so that they can sharpen all of this up. They can make it really good, have characters being subtle. It's just, even the slightest tweaks could make things less obvious here. But there's other problems that are way bigger than this. One of them being, it is obvious that they do not workshop the whole season as a whole. Liandrin's clue about her son being one of those obvious things. There was nothing to lead up to her having this symbol or being part of this religion until we really needed there to be some reason for them to say, Tanchico, that's probably where she went. If this was a manuscript handed to me to do a developmental edit for, I would have said, you need to have clues about this way earlier. At least earlier than the episode that they discover it. Otherwise, it's very unsatisfying. Nobody could have guessed that Liandrin went to Tanchico, because we've never had any indication that she has a connection to Tanchico. You want to be clever? Drop hints that she follows this religion, and then separately that this religion is related to Tanchico, and have those 2 clues spaced out somewhere in earlier episodes. That's how you do it. And then when you get to the part where they discover this thing, we're like, oh, yes, she is part of that religion. And yes, it is the religion that's over in Tanchico. That makes perfect sense. Anyway, gotta stop. Keep moving. Okay, we're moving on to Min and Matt. The first scene of them is when Min goes and delivers that laundry to Elayne's room, but really nothing happens there. She leaves. Next, we go to Matt, and we can see that he's having difficulty sleeping and getting the sounds of people dying on the battlefield out of his head. He is being tormented by this. Again, in the books, his ailment is the dagger of Shatter Lagoth. But here they're indicating that no, this is from the Horn of Valir. So the Horn of Valir is something that hurts the person who blows it. I don't know, whatever. Okay, this is what they're doing. Anyway, Min walks into his room, just waltzes right in, with attitude, of course. She comes in to talk to him, but he doesn't want to talk to her.
Can I get a lock installed, please?
Oh, yeah, I'll bring it up with management. Can we talk?
No, I told you I've got nothing to say to you.
Yeah, but maybe I have something left to say to you, you little prick.
What you say?
Do you have any idea what I gave up to protect you? Isharmal was going to take away my visions.
He said so. And you believed him? If I'm going to be his friend, I have to start by giving him the benefit of the doubt.
It was right there. The chance to be free of it. To be normal. And I chose you instead.
What, do you want me to say thank you? I've not got any thank yous. I'll tell you what, you come back tomorrow, you might want to nab yourself a You're Forgiven first.
Oh, thank God, someone said it.
You know what?
Main.
I don't know why anybody thought that this would be a good argument for why Matt should be treating her nicer. She made a deal with the devil to have her gift taken away, even though she would be helping the one person who wants to destroy the goodness in the world. Matt treats her rightly in this encounter because she hasn't even tried to get forgiveness from him. She's doing nothing to show that she really does regret what she did. She's just instantly jumping to, you should forgive me because I've had it so tough. You have to earn that forgiveness. You have to earn, and I'm sorry, but there's not much you can do to earn back forgiveness of, yes, I made a deal with the devil to not only screw over you and your friends, but the whole world. This is not believable. She does not deserve to be forgiven. She does not deserve to be talked to or trusted or anything. Frankly, I'm surprised Matt has not told Suan that Min made a deal with the devil. So this was a very bad decision on the parts of the writers because Min was, in the books, somebody who didn't really look on her visions as a curse. She just kind of had them and she was happy to help people. Like if she saw a vision and it was like, oh my gosh, people are in danger, she would like tell them like, oh my gosh, this is a bad thing that's gonna happen. You should maybe do something about it. She was happy to be helpful. As a matter of fact, she puts herself on the line quite a bit to help other people. What they're doing with her in the show is really bizarre, makes very little sense. And I don't know why we have this big connection between her and Matt. It's awkward. Unless they end up really close in the books. So far, I'm in book 6 and they haven't really had anything. So I don't know. We gotta move on. Yeah, so Min gets all upset that Matt doesn't want to talk to her and she storms off. And then Matt seems to regret that he wasn't nice enough to her that she would stay and keep talking. I don't know. Yeah, one more thing in this scene. When Min comes in here, she seems to want to talk to him about something and then drops the subject when Matt is annoyed at her and turns to whatever the other thing, like you should be forgiving me. And we don't really find out what that other thing was until a later scene. Now, it's important to remember this because of a point I'm going to be making later about what I think she was going to come in and talk to him about, because it makes another scene that Min has make no sense or have zero value. In the next scene, we've got Min talking to Elayne when Elayne reveals that she is, oh, I'm a seer also. And I know that you are a spy for Suan. And when she suggests to Min that, you don't have to just be a bystander involved when it comes to your gift. You don't just have to sit there and be a witness to things that happen. You can get involved. You can take action in the events leading up to and following whatever visions that you see. And then she gives Min that, don't tell Suan, but I'm calling for a vote to cage the dragon, which Min must have taken to Suan, and then Suan acts on that. Oh my gosh. So weird. I'm sure that the writers didn't show Min telling this information to Suan because there would have been no excuse for her not saying, by the way, Elayne knew that I'm a spy for you and she told me to keep this a secret from you. Like she would have to say that. And even if she does, we would then be one of the two of them would look stupid or evil. Either Min withholding that information, just saying, hey, I heard that Elayne's gonna call a meeting with the Reds. That makes Min look like not a good spy. Like, why is she concealing this? The fact that Elayne knows she's a spy. Or it makes Suan look bad, because if Suan hears the information that, oh, she knows I'm a spy and she told me not to tell you this, and Suan acts on that, then Suan looks stupid. So I have to hand it to the writers, not including that scene. Whoever it was decided we're not going to have that scene on screen. That was a good choice, because if we had that scene, one of these two was going to look really dumb or evil or both. But the thing is if you have an intelligent audience, they pick up on this sort of thing and go, why did this happen? Anyway, it's much better to write to an intelligent audience and challenge them to rise to understand what you have written than to write as if they are stupid, because then they feel like you were considering them stupid, which you were. The show Severance is a great example of trusting that your audience is intelligent and that if you've written a good enough story, they will be invested enough to pay attention. You don't have to write as if your audience is only half paying attention to what you're doing. This show shouldn't be writing that way anyway. I mean, look at their visuals budget. The costumes are amazing. The sets are amazing. The special effects have gotten damn good this season. So another note on this scene is that it feels like the purpose of this scene with Elayne was to inspire Min with the idea that she can do some good with her curse, with her visions. Like there's something that she can do with this information that she has that is valuable and will help people. And actually, if that is what the purpose of this scene was, this scene does serve that purpose well. But then again, it's like, why is she here at the tower? And we get an explanation for that in the upcoming scene, where I think it's revealed what she wanted to talk about with Matt in the previous scene, but got cut off and got distracted about, you should be treating me nicer. It seems like what she was going to tell Matt was, I think that we could do something with our gifts. But then we have Elayne here telling her, you can do something with your gifts. And Min it looks like she had never thought of that before. So what was the point of this scene? We'll come back to this. Keep going. The next scene, we've got Matt chases Min down to apologize to her. And she's already like, I've got my own problems, get away. Like, there's more important things going on here than you and me not getting along here. Like, oh my gosh, Min, she's not a very nice person. She's not a good person. It doesn't matter what went on in her life before. She should be looking at herself from his perspective in this situation and going, oh gee, I almost got him and his friends killed and destroyed the world. I don't have a right to give him attitude about anything, and you don't. Matt should not be apologizing to her. I don't know why he would ever have this impulse. You're gonna go and say you're sorry for being mean to the person who tried to kill you or who was willing to kill you and your friend because she wasn't gonna kill him. Yes, she was going to hand him over to the devil, basically. Like that's the same. That's worse than killing. But anyway, so Matt is like, you just gotta go easy on me because I've got my own issues. And she's like, yeah, I know you have your own issues. I know about the headaches and the voice, whatever, the stuff. And he's like, you know about that? And she's like, yeah, you've told everybody about it. Like, if you knew about this, if you knew that he was stressed out, this just raises even more questions as to why were you such a bitch to him? You need his forgiveness. You know that he is suffering right now and stressed out. So what? She has absolutely no social skills whatsoever. This person is coming across as very self-centered and selfish, much like Moiraine was. And I don't know if they're trying to make us like her, but this is not working at all. Matt apologizing to her makes no sense, and she does not deserve an apology. So it just makes no sense all around. So then Min says that she came to the tower thinking that she could do some good with her curse. And she suggests, I thought that we could, maybe you could do something good with your thing too. This is the thing that undermines that scene with Elayne. If the moment with Elayne was supposed to be Elayne inspiring her to maybe you can use your gift for good, like you can make use of it in some way. But here she's claiming, I came here believing I could do some good with this. How does that, what? What was the point of that scene with Elayne? Especially, and my argument for this is what she was thinking was when we go back to this first scene with Matt, before she had that conversation with Elayne, when she comes in and he was just sleeping and having nightmares or whatever, and she was starting to talk to him about something, but then she, got distracted by demanding that he treat her nicer. That, I believe, was the moment she was going to tell him, I came here thinking maybe we could do some good with our curses, like the things that are going on with us. There's something good we can do with them. So this was her plan coming to the tower at all. She's basically explaining, this is why I'm here at the tower. I'm like, okay, fine. I could see that being a thing. I'm not sure what would have spurred that desire, but apparently she just suddenly had that desire after almost betraying Matt, and then at the last second, not betraying him to the extreme. So she goes to the tower to help out. But then why does she have this conversation with Elayne where it seems like she didn't have that idea? It just doesn't make any sense, but yeah, so that whole conversation with Elayne made zero sense whatsoever. I think that the only purpose of that scene was for Elayne to do the whole, can I get you to keep a secret? I know you're a spy for Suan, but can you please keep the secret? I think that was the whole purpose of this scene. And they tried to make it seem like it was not that purpose. But everything else that happened before it was just there to give the two of them something to talk about. And the thing is that it looks like it is serving the purpose of inspiring Min. Like, that is what that kind of scene is for. It is to inspire Min to do something different, to use her gifts or her curses for good. But now she's claiming that was what her whole plan was coming to the tower in the first place. And the evidence of that actually being accurate is that scene in the beginning when she goes to Matt to try to talk to him about something and then gets distracted. It's like two different people wrote these. One person wrote the thing with Elida, and one person wrote the things with Matt, and the two people never talked to each other before they wrote their scenes, and then they just put it on screen. That's what this feels like. This is... Anyway.
Maybe we can make some good out of these things we've been cursed with. Maybe that warrior who fought at Farm is still somewhere inside you.
Well, I know this, but... No, Min, stop. I told you when I met you, I don't want to know what is headed my way.
I'm sorry, miss. Is this mad and bothering you?
I can handle myself, thanks.
If I didn't know already that Matt leaves at the end of this episode, I'd be like, where are they going to find more red arches? I'm guessing Tanchico? Are they going to have this happen in Tanchico? Maybe wherever they find the collar in Tanchico is where they're going to have the arches there too. They're supposed to be in Tyr and Ruidian, but okay. And she, being weirded out by the vision, takes off, and then Matt is left there being really rude and annoyed at Galad, who really hasn't done anything wrong. He just thought maybe Min is being bothered, like she's dressed like a servant. Maybe she's being bothered by this guy. And so he's like, hey, is everything going okay? And Matt is just so rude to Galad, and actually liked that he was kind of amused at Matt being like all offended and like, upset about this. Like, he's above this.
You're excellent, aren't you? Sturdy, very protective, very selfless of you. Thank the lights we have you here with us.
Forgive me a cruel chuckle. Power.
I liked that. But the next scene we have is with Matt in the warder training circle by himself using a quarterstaff at the dummy in there. And this is an iconic scene from the books where Matt is trying to get out of the White Tower because he's basically being held prisoner there because he had this Shatter Lagoth curse basically on him because of the dagger, and the Aes Sedai are like, we don't really know if you're completely clear of it, so you're stuck here now. You're not allowed to leave. And he's trying to get out, and he's like, okay, I need money. And and also Elayne has given him the task of, I need you to deliver a letter to my mother, basically to tell her not to go, don't send an army after me when you find out I'm going to be missing. I think that's what the letter was. I'm pretty sure what it is. So we saw that happen in episode 1 of this season, and it didn't involve Matt at all. Anyway, whatever. And then she came anyway. Okay, whatever. So in the books, Matt is tasked with this, please take this letter. And I don't remember if that happens before this fight scene or not, but either way, he wants out of the tower, and he knows he needs money to make that happen. And he comes across all of the warders and the student warders, which includes these princes. And he's like, you know what, I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna bet them. Like, he likes to gamble, he likes to bet, and he's like, I'll bet you I could beat you with a quarterstaff. 2 of you, to the princes. And they're like, that's not cool. Like, he's obviously like a peasant from the hills. They're gonna kick his ass, so they don't want to do anything to him. But anyway, he does end up getting to spar with them and beating both of them in front of everybody. Everybody's kind of like, what happened here? Matt actually happened to be quite good at the quarterstaff, having been a shepherd back in the Two Rivers, and they would every once in a while have like quarterstaff sparring games where the shepherds would all like, hey, this is basically pickleball for them. They would all get together and do this. And Matt and his father were both very, very good at this, he having learned from his father. And later we kind of get that from his dad when we return to the Two Rivers. But anyway, the warder, the guy who is training all of the warders kind of uses this as an example, saying to teach his own students, you do not underestimate somebody. Don't assume just because they're not, here training with all of us that they're not very good at their own fighting style or whatever. that they don't have skill of their own. You don't want to underestimate somebody. Not necessarily saying like, oh, maybe Matt went off and learned at some martial arts school somewhere else. But this is a kid who grew up with a quarterstaff. Like during his free time, he was probably playing with this thing. But yeah, so the teacher gives this lecture to his students saying, see, you don't want this to happen to you. If we have to cut that out, fine. As a martial artist and a former instructor myself, I really appreciate this because this is something that you hope will happen in a non-competition situation. You teach your students, you need to do this, and you find yourself telling them the same thing over and over again. You got to stop doing that thing because somebody's going to come along and take advantage of that. Then some fresh meat walks into the club and you're like, oh, okay, go ahead and fence my guys. That's what I taught, fencing. They go against your students and totally kick their asses. And that's when you turn to your students and you go, you see, I told you this would happen. You want them to have been defeated by that and then say, look, this is why I've told you every time you need to fix this thing. Now it has sunken into their heads. Oh, gee, maybe my teacher is right. It's a very nice moment for a teacher to have moments like that because it's like, finally, I don't need to keep hammering it home. They get it. They understand the importance of it. So just as a martial arts instructor, I would have appreciated that moment. But what we do in the show is Matt is training by himself and then Galad and Gowan show up and they're total dicks at first for no reason. They're just like, man, your form is terrible or whatever. I was glad that Galad turned to him and was like, look, if you want, I'll teach you how to use a sword. Like, that's a real weapon. And so the mentality is still kind of the same with the exception of the rudeness that didn't need to be there. But I don't know why we make them so unlikable. They're already going to be doing things that set them up as opposition to some of our main characters. You don't need to make them into dicks. But they are, whatever. Matt decides he likes using the quarterstaff, so he doesn't want lessons. Then Nynaeve shows up to tell him that she's leaving. And he's like, what? Why are you leaving? Like, what about me? You're here to help me, which he's right to assume that because even though she gave the excuse that I'm here to get over my block, and then Matt is like, I'm gonna stay here and, you know, it's good for me because Nynaeve is here also. Nynaeve never did anything related to her blocks in the episodes that we have seen so far with her being on the in the tower. She hasn't talked to anybody about this. Anyway, he's like, why are you leaving? And she lets it out that they think that they've figured out where Liandrin is going. And so they're going to go after Liandrin. And Matt just very loudly, Liandrin. And like the boys can hear it. Like, I hope that the boys show up in Tanchico. Like somehow they figured out that because one of them should be there. But anyway, oh, okay. When I talk about the stuff that happened in the book and compare it to the show, there's so much that has been crossed and flipped and not shuffled out of order and it doesn't quite work. And I want to explain all of that, but I really don't have the time. So anyway, the princes think that Matt is bothering Nynaeve and intervene again, like, hey, what's going on? And Nynaeve is like, it's fine, you don't need to do anything. And then they push in even more, like, no, you know what, Matt, step away from her because you're just causing too many problems. To be fair, this is now the second time that they have seen him in a confrontation with a young lady where he's like trying to pull her into, like, he's grabbing a girl. It's the being a dick on top of it that just... Anyway, so Matt refuses to step away from Nynaeve. He's like, or what are you gonna do? And he grabs his quarterstaff, like, what are you gonna do? And the two guys are like, what? You gonna fight us with a quarterstaff? And Nynaeve is like, no, don't do this. But Matt's not backing down. He basically says, I'll take you both on. I'll bet you that I can, I forget what he says, 2 marks that I can beat you. 2 marks each that I can beat both of you with a quarterstaff. And the boys think this is a big joke, but they're like, fine, let's settle this. Like it's been some debate that they can fight. This literally just happened, but okay. Before he gets out into the center of the circle, Matt says something to Nynaeve in the old tongue. It's the same thing that he said after he blew the horn, and it was the first words of, it was like a battle cry of Manetheren that he said. But anyway, the music, this scene, taking away the context from the book that gave this scene a lot more value, on its own in the show, I actually really liked this scene. And a lot has to do with how they built up to Matt doing something special in this scene. Not anything before this, but just in this scene on its own, pretending the books do not exist. Something special happens to Matt. We see him assume a fighting stance.
He rolls well.
Two marks. Each.
The music really sold it for me in this whole thing. It's hard to see what happened because the editing was so bad, but basically the choreography was mostly okay. I mean, everybody's doing a good job. Like, so you can see that they definitely are doing most of these stunts themselves. There was like maybe 1 or 2 shots where it was more of a wide angle shot and I could tell that it was not the actors. But the actor playing Matt is really, I don't know what you would call this. He's juggling or twirling that quarterstaff. And the boys are doing all of their tumbling and rolling and other stuff like this. They seem like they are really doing this. But the editing is quite choppy, hard to follow exactly what's happening. But if you pay attention, the 2 boys start I call them boys. They're all kids in this show to me. But the 2 princes attack Matt from the same direction. At one point they do this weird hand-holding thing. But this is not, if you are a swordsman, I am a swordswoman, you would know that the quarterstaff has a significant advantage over you. 2 reasons. 1, it is longer. And 2, it is 2-sided. So he could come at you from the upper left and then the lower right almost it's so quickly you would not, and you've only got 1 weapon that can block or parry at a time. It's much slower motion for you to pull up for a high block and then down for a low block than it is for him to just 1-2. So he's gonna have the advantage of speed and reach. So as 2 swordsmen against 1 quarterstaff, the strategy should be to come at them from 2 separate directions. So fighting 2 like this while your opponent is on the other side, you wanna get behind. One of you should be behind. And never just one of you fighting at a time. I'm not sure why, and I can't remember because I'm not watching the footage because I know I'll talk about it so much longer, but at some point, one of them gets knocked down and then does not jump back into the engagement. So you've got, I think it's Galad standing there and Matt standing there, and they're not doing anything either, while Gawain is who knows where. So the advantage that the swordsman would have had by being 2 bodies separate was never there from the beginning because they did not take advantage of being 2 separate bodies with swords against somebody with a greater advantage but a single weapon that you know, he's only got 1 pair of eyeballs. He can't watch 2 directions at once. But there's many instances in this fight where it's only one of them attacking him at a time and spending a lot of time not attacking him. Matt should have kept them on the run, and they should have never relented. There should be no waiting period where you're trying to decide, how do I go after them? Like, okay, if Galad is standing there and Matt is standing there and Gawain is tumbling off on the side, Galad should wait until Gawain can get back up and re-engage. But he doesn't wait for that. They just, Matt and Galad just re-engage. Okay, if you're not paying too much attention to the way that this this sparring session goes down, you can get into it and appreciate it. Like the first time I watched it, I was just swept away by the music and I was like, this is great. And then I thought about it and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Are they trying to suggest that he's tapping into his past lives? And that is how he acquired this skill? Because then that really isn't Matt just being a badass at the quarterstaff because he and his buddies in the hills would do this all the time as if it was pickleball. And so he's practicing quarterstaff fights as much as they are practicing sword fights. Anyway, there's a lot that is taken away from this scene in the grand context where something magical seems to be happening to Matt, and that's why he's able to do this. And it's not just his own skill, and also the teaching moment for all the other warders is gone. But if I take it just by itself, I enjoyed it, and I thought that the direction gave it the kind of grandeur that it needed to have just by itself. Would have been better with all this other stuff, but I think that the music did it mostly, and then having Matt so soundly beat both of them. But yeah, you look at the choreography, not the choreography, I'm gonna say the plan for this fight did not make sense for a quarterstaff versus two swordsmen. Matt should have beaten the crap out of them the way these two boys fought. And he wouldn't have had to have been much more skilled in order to make that happen. I did actually like though when, so Matt does disarm Gowan very quickly in I think it's his second engagement with Gowan. I don't know what the heck Gowan was doing off in the corner somewhere for so long, but when he does re-engage with Matt disarms him with one side of the quarterstaff and then takes out Gowan with the other side. Great, that's how it works. Quick disarm, quick disablement. And then when he gets to Galad, he does basically the same thing, disarms him quickly, but then when he tries to keep fighting, Galad doesn't give up. He's using his fists now. Like, so I'm on Galad's side here. Like, you can do this, keep going. But Matt is still armed, Galad is not, and Matt takes advantage of that and hits him once and then does a weird flippy thing where he turns his back on Galad for a second and then comes back at him. But that doesn't matter because Galad was disarmed at that moment anyway, so what's he gonna do? Punch him again? Anyway, gotta move on. So Matt walks off with, he walks off by himself after saying, you guys owe me 2 marks. Did he ever collect those? I didn't see him collect them. But anyway, he walks off, and in the last scene with him, we see that he is with Elayne and Nynaeve, and they are headed towards the docks to leave, and he wants to know where they're going. They're being awfully noisy. Again, I'm complaining about this at the same scene. Anybody could hear them. And he's like, I want to know where we're going, and Elayne is rightfully upset that Nynaeve told Matt when she wasn't allowed to tell her brothers, who might have been more useful on this trip, actually, because they would have had money, and you don't have to appear down in the slums. I don't know, maybe not. Okay, whatever. Either way, Matt really isn't somebody you should be trusting because of how wacko he's been acting. But anyway, he finds out they're going to Tanchico and he's like, ooh, Tanchico, that's a dangerous place. It's a good thing I'm coming along. Elayne's brothers tell you how good I am with a quarterstaff, and they go off to get on a boat, and then you can see that Min has followed them. I'm not sure how she found out that they were all leaving together, but we're just, I guess, assuming that somehow off screen she heard about Matt getting into this fight with the princes, maybe. Who knows? But that's the end of that. Yeah, my final note on Matt is that the show is doing an awful lot to try to make him into a smaller person. He's not honorable. He's not charismatic. He's very shallow. And that's just not who he is in the books at all. It is very disappointing. And they have not made that major shift into creating a super likable, charismatic character who happens to be great at all of these things, is super loyal, will do anything for you. I have not seen the shift for him. And there's been no lesson learning to teach him that he shouldn't act this way. This whole thing with him and the princes should be encouraging him to be even more the way that he has been, because he was jealous of them being better than him, and then he showed them up, and then he walks away, and he's like, did your brothers tell you how good I am with the quarterstaff? I don't know why his character wasn't interesting enough in the books. And I just don't find this character particularly likable. My enjoyment of his scene beating the two princes was more of my appreciating something magical happening, which is not what was really going on in the books, and that the moment was given some grandeur because of the music and the way that it was built up within the scene itself. And maybe anything that came from the books, knowing that, oh, this is going to be a really cool moment for Matt. But I don't enjoy his character. I don't enjoy him. I don't enjoy Matt. And the princes were made not very likable. They were not this obnoxious in the books. They were basically like how you would expect from a family that raised Elayne. They were very noble, and he was attempting to be courteous to Matt, assuming Matt is just some, kid from the backwoods who couldn't possibly know how to fight and didn't want to humiliate him or, lower himself to beating a kid like that. And that's not what we did here. We decided, nope, they are both gonna tease him for having terrible form. And that's it. Whatever. All right, gotta move on. I do have to wonder why, when Nynaeve told Matt, we know where Liandrin is and we're gonna go after her, and he goes, Liandrin! And you see that the two princes hear this and look over in their direction. Something should come of that. If we're going to have that moment there, something should come of it. If not, it just makes Matt look dumb. And actually, it makes him look dumb anyway. Even if something does come of it, why would he shout that? It's just people talking loudly in order to be heard. They're having secret conversations in such a loud way so that they can be heard. All right, back to speeding things up. And that won't be too hard in this segment because we're on to Rand.
Oh, Randy, I forgot you were here.
Rand is with the Aiel walking through the waste. Lan and Moraine are both trying to get information about how they knew that they were coming, and Ruark, who is the chief, is like, that, the wise ones told us, and they're like, who are the wise ones? That's wise ones' business.
How long is this?
Even hearing it is bad. I need to stop hearing it.
And then Egwene whispers over to Rand right in front of this lady, like, that lady, she was in my dreams. It's a bit weird. How long have they been traveling with these people before she bothers to say this? Like, this is the woman who was in my dream. And the woman turns back to Egwene and says, you were in my dream. I wasn't in your dream. You were in mine. And then we get alarm bells going off. Like, people are saying, hey, we're approaching water. And Avienda informs Rand and the others, like, there's been more blood spilt in the threefold land over water than blood spilt over gold. So they know that they have to be very careful approaching water. They get there, and there's a bunch of tinkers around the well, dead. They've been slaughtered. Examining the bodies, Egwene, who knew the tinkers, remember from season 1, and hung out with them, she's like, who would ever do this to tinkers? They would never harm anybody. Would the Aiel do this? And Avienda's like, no. Aiel would never do this. The only thing more dishonorable than not defending yourself would be killing somebody who refuses to defend themselves. But okay, so this is actually a decent way to introduce kind of that mentality and the relationship between these Aiel and the other Aiel, like that there are more than just one tribe of Aiel and they don't always get along.
Sword wound? No. Look at the edge. It could have been done by a spear, made to look like a sword.
No Aiel would do this. The Shido might.
If the Shido are near, we need to go. Now.
Who are the Shido?
Another Aiel clan. They have a blood feud with the Ta'ardat.
To discover the Tuatha'an slaughtered like this, and they were killed with spears in a way to make it look like swords, I'm not sure why that happened. This is serving two purposes. First, we are getting the relationship between the Aiel and the Tuatha'an, sort of. The Aiel don't really like the Tuatha'an, but they're not going to go after them and hurt them. They just think that they're kind of despicable because essentially their ideology is opposite to what the Aiel's ideology is. Like, you won't even fight to defend anything yourself or anybody. And we are getting the information about the Shido. So this isn't the worst thing to do. This is actually fine. So I like this. It's much better than them just walking and talking and saying, there are lots of tribes among the Aiel. Not all of them are friendly. We also have this interesting relationship with the Lost Ones, who you know as the Tuatha'an. So much better job there. Anyway, one of the wise ones is like, if there's Shido near here, we gotta get to Roidion fast. And this is kind of a hint that when you're near Roidion, you do not shed blood. Because it is a sacred place to all of the Aiel. So she's like, we gotta get there fast. And Egwene is like, well, shouldn't we bury the dead? We can't just leave them here like this. And one of the wise ones is like, they got what they had coming to them. They, too bad they wouldn't defend themselves. She wants to just leave because it's dangerous. The Shido are nearby. I totally agree with her. But then Rhuarc is like, you know what? Okay, I will stay and I will bury the dead and I'll catch up to you guys. And I'm just a little confused as to why the chief of the war, like he is obviously one of their warriors, like one of the great ones. Why would he stay by himself with the Shido around to bury the dead, which is going to be a lot, like that's a lot of work to bury all these people. Even if he's not digging holes, he's just piling rocks on top of them, which would be weird. Like all the people who have to go to that well now are going to pass these bodies that are rotting and bloating and stinking because they're just covered with rocks. Anyway, also, shouldn't he be with his wife lady, one of these wise ones he's in a relationship with? He calls her Shade of My Heart, and so we know they're together. Why would he stay behind when they might be in danger? Like if the Shido are around and there's a blood feud, he should stay with the other. Oh, okay. Anyway, it's like he's putting himself in danger and he's endangering them by doing this, but it would be weird if they just left a bunch of Tuatha on there. So Rand does have one little exchange with Rhuarc before they head off.
Meridian, that's where you're taking us. I know there's a trial for me there.
You know too much and too little.
Thanks for that. I'll log that away.
I don't think that last little bit there was necessary, except to build suspense for Rand is on his way to some test, which we kind of knew before, but I guess we had to remind people of it here. I'm too tired to think of how I would rewrite this, but it wasn't the worst scene in the world, so. It's now night and they have all made camp and we see Egwene talking to one of the wise ones, and the wise one is telling her, like, you're a dream walker. Like, there aren't many of those. The White Tower hasn't produced one in a very long time, and among our tribe, there's only me and this other lady. The wise one asks Egwene about, it looked like you were running from somebody when you popped into my dream. What was that about? And so Egwene tells her about the nightmares that she's been having, and the wise one looks at her neck and is like, oh, that's where you got these bruises. And she's like, who's this woman? And Egwene's like, oh, it's, somebody who hurt me once, like, but, she's dead, so it's not anything to worry about anymore. And this is when the wise one says, if she's able to hurt you and cause physical pain like this, she's still alive. And Egwene's like, what? How, she can't be alive. Like, we obviously saw Rhenna, because this is the person she's been dreaming about, dead at the end of the last season. So she's disturbed by this. And then the wise one says, like, after we go to Roidion, I will teach you about dream walking and how to protect yourself from this, because we can't let this happen. Now, there's a problem with this that did not even occur to me until some folks in my Discord mentioned it. But if a living person can hurt you in the dream world, and you can die in the dream world or whatever, like whatever harm they do to you will be out here as well. There is an issue with when Rand stabbed himself to death in the finale of season 1.
This is a dream.
Because he was in the dream world with Ishamael and skewered himself with his own sword, yet he woke up just fine. So maybe you can't hurt yourself? I don't know. I'm not really sure. Seems to be an unaddressed loophole. It never came up in the books that I know of, so I have no idea what the rules are there. This is a beautiful desert location, by the way. I live in the desert myself. I'm in Arizona. I appreciate desert landscapes, so nice. I like Moraine being out of her element and constantly putting her foot in her mouth. It's just nice. I enjoyed Nynaeve more when I saw her being humiliated by Elayne. Well, not humiliated, but, basically calling her out and showing her what an idiot she is. And I'm appreciating the same with Moraine. This is much nicer to see her not constantly trying to be in control of the situation, but doing so in a really dumb way that does nothing for anybody and makes her only enemies, no friends. So I like that she's not in a position of control or power here, and that she is constantly putting her foot in her mouth. Next, we are in Rand's dream, and he is dreaming about that hotel room with Lanfear again. And Rand is like, you gotta stop calling me here. And she's like, I didn't call you. This time you called me. And she looks very forlorn and introspective. She doesn't seem to even care that she is there. Rand is like, it's hard to believe that, anything that comes out of your mouth.
I'll go.
What's wrong?
I don't know if I can untangle this for us. You were right to stay away from Calendar. I should have seen that. It was selfish of me.
Selfish? What do you want with Calendar? What aren't you telling me?
You wouldn't believe me.
It's a trap!
There's a way, I think, I could escape my dark oaths if the Dark One himself is destroyed.
Is that even possible?
There's a Sa'angreal as strong as Calendar. For women, the Sakanen. Think if a man and woman used them together, they could
kill the Dark One. And what would it mean for you if the oaths you swore were gone? Unfair. We can't.
I shouldn't have said anything.
And there's no confirmation really if this is Lanfear intentionally trying to get him, I wish you'd gone for Calendar, and, that would have been the smart, trying to make him regret his choice to go to the Waste. But if it is, she's doing a good job. I think there's maybe a slight indication, there's a moment where she's like, I was being selfish, and it seems almost like she really means that. So either the character is very good at acting this, which I would like, or they're not going there. But Lanfear should not care at all about whether her oaths to the Dark One are cut or whatever. All she cares about is acquiring power. And she can be very powerful if Rand has Calendar, and if she has, the Sarkinen is not the same thing, but this is not a plan that she proposes to Rand. It has been spoiled to me that Calendar is a device which, although it is for a man, it also allows a woman to control a man in a way. I don't understand the mechanics of it, but it has been kind of indicated that. And I don't know if the show is going to follow that. And she really wanted Rand to get Calendar so that she could control him in some way. That's what she was hoping for. But then why would she tell him about the Sarkinen, which is for women, unless she hopes that he will go and look for that too? But why would he look for that for her? So I don't know. And I would hope that she finds out about it at some point, that Moiraine eventually gets it and tries to take it for herself. That's where I would probably take that. But anyway, we're in such a strange place compared to what happens in the books. Rand would never, ever talk to Lanfear like this. Lanfear tried very, very hard to make Rand believe that she just wants to help, and he never fell for it. He would listen to her and not do anything, constantly rejecting her ideas and what she proposes. All of them did, which I'm sure she must have found very frustrating. But yeah, so she's like, I've said too much, and then she disappears from the dream. It does feel like this is supposed to be an act, and I do hope that that's what this turns out to be, that it was all just an act. And I think that what we know of her and what she's doing in Egwene's dreams, and later we will see she is also communicating with Moiraine and trying to manipulate Moiraine. Literally, not even trying, just taking control of Moiraine. And Moraine's willfully going along with it. Oh, it's so weird. This is an act. It's not real. She does not love the dragon. She does not want her bonds to be broken. She doesn't care, just whatever she can do to get power. This is more, actually, if that's the way that they go with this, this is more like the book Lanfear than in previous seasons that we have seen of Lanfear, which seemed to be indicating that she just wanted to be with Rand. She wanted to be with him and disappear into the wilderness together. That was not this is more like Lanfear from the book. Not the same technique of getting what she wants, but this is something, I could see this being, this is actually more sophisticated writing, I think, if this is what they're doing, that she's faking this, than everything else. So I gotta hand it to them for that.
They're making it hotter.
Have you never been in a sweat tent before?
No, we have not.
I think that Lan should not have been suffering. He should have been enjoying it, and Moiraine should have been suffering, and maybe he was trying to help her be more comfortable. Because if you remember, if we're going to stick to what the book, or not the book, what the show has done with these characters, the first time we see the two of them taking a bath together, he wanted the water hotter, and she was fine with it the way that it was, so she makes it hotter for his comfort. So he should be enjoying that it's hot, and she should be the one who's uncomfortable. And yeah, anyway.
What is the significance of Ruidian?
Do they not teach politeness at your White Tower, child?
I love it. Yes, somebody needs to throw Moraine's, even though what she asked, we as the audience would not find as rude. Anytime somebody's gonna call Moiraine out for being rude, whether she's being rude or not, I'm in favor of it because 90% of the time she is being very rude. But the other wise one, being courteous to our guests who don't know anything, says Ruidian is where the Aiel send their men and women to become wise ones and clan chiefs. So now they've got that bit of information. I don't know if they're trying to build up that the wise ones have some sort of a conflict between the two of them, but there is this little bit where the younger wise one seems to have been annoyed by what the older wise one did, and she just like up and leaves. Whatever, it doesn't matter, because then we are introduced to Melindra.
I think she's looking at you.
I think she's looking at you.
If you say so. You're allowed to be happy, even just for one night, just for an hour.
Do you think an hour with her is what I need to be happy?
Probably wouldn't hurt.
She needs to get laid big time.
It's been a long time since I've been with someone else.
Don't forget how it works.
I like this on its own, but I don't like... It's like every time there's something that I like, it's like I only like it in a little bubble this big. Like if I just take, like if we were to have this scene, if I knew nothing about the books and we were to have this scene and then we had the scene with the two of them in the bath before and like any moment that the two of them had that is pleasant together, I'd be like, oh, I like this. This is quite nice. Like this is the relationship that the two of them have. They're supportive of each other. They understand each other. But because I know everything that's been happening around the two of them especially, she does not deserve to have somebody this supportive of her. And Lan is, I don't know what is up with this guy. Like, why? I will be happy if Moiraine dies at the end of this season, which, if they're following the books, pretty much happens. So anyway, this lady walks over and it was Lan she was looking at and was like, you wanna come hang out with me? And we get a nice little bit of nipple in there. I don't know why we didn't do that with the boat ladies, but we'll talk about that when that happens. Lan does not exactly seem to be interested until this lady turns around and we see on her back is a tattoo of the sun and a crane, and he obviously recognizes this as a symbol of Malkier, and so he follows her out and is like, why the heck do you have this tattoo? And we find out this lady says that she was just a girl when the Blight took over Malkier, and she was out, family dead, nobody, and the Aiel found her and took her in and raised her. And so she became a Maiden of the Spear, obviously. But she says, I would throw down my spears right away and return with you to Malkier if you ordered me to. Have you forgotten what your duty is as the king of Malkier? And he's like, I have not forgotten. She asks Lan if he still fights his father's war, since he still carries his father's sword. Amazing that she recognized it. And he's like, I have not forgotten. Now, in the books, Melindra is a dark friend and is trying to break Matt away from Rand. Like, that's her mission, is to separate the two of them, or it seems like that's what her mission is. And she seduces Matt successfully, but he's never brought away from Rand.
You won the game.
So, well, he kind of almost goes away, but he still stays. He's not going to abandon Rand for any superficial reason. So I don't know if they're going to try to do that here, where this lady is going to try and seduce Lan away from Rand. I don't know. It seems like this would feel like a waste of this character. I'm not sure why Lan would be seen as a very big threat to the Dark One, so much so that he would have to intervene and separate them. When it's a Ta'veren, where the pattern is literally going to weave around this person and like put things into place for the benefit of this person, that's one thing. That's like God tier level things happening in favor of these two people being together. But I don't think that Lan has something like that, unless it's going to be revealed sometime later in the books that Lan is a Taveran also. But I feel like people would have figured that out. People would have been like, oh, all this great stuff keeps happening around Lan. Whenever he needs to do something, he's able to do it. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see if they do this with Melindra. It does feel like we're introducing yet another plot. And now that we've come to the end of this little bit here, my big question is, why did we not get a scene with Rand talking to Rhuarc and the other leaders? He's being brought here among the Aiel because he might be their messiah, not even like their messiah, like he's their chief of chiefs, yeah, kind of their messiah. He's not necessarily though going to save them, as described in the previous episode by Aviendha. He is going to deliver them out of the desert, but he's also going to break them like twigs. He's going to spill their blood across the sand. Like, he's going to cause major upheaval among the Aiel. Why is he not everybody's focus? So in the books, there was a lot of attention on Rand when he came into the Aiel. All the leaders and chiefs wanted to talk to him. They want to know, is this going to be somebody, what's he going to do? Like, how is this going to affect all of us? And things happened. When he came out of Rudion, there was a schism among the Aiel. Some of them could not accept that he was the Karn, and then when he reveals their secret past that a lot of them can't accept, they can't accept that, and because of that, they leave. Like, he really divides the Aiel, like causes major upheaval in the threefold land. So why is nobody interested in him enough that we get a scene of him talking to the Aiel? Like, he's had no time with the Aiel at all, not even Aviendha. It feels like there are things we did not need to waste time on, and probably this Melindra thing, I don't think that scene needed to be here at all, which kind of means the sweat tent scene didn't need to be here at all. It should have been Rand in the sweat tent talking to people, asking what's going on. But, okay. We did get to see Lan's ass. I was okay with that. For a show that has made so many efforts to be like, this is a show that's gonna showcase women and their strengths, and like it's catered to women, like you get to see women in power. We don't get a lot of male nudity in this show. And it feels like that's something that a lot of women would want to see. But we have been giving some titty, and that, okay. I guess some women would really like that. Not me though. All right, moving on to Perrin. Perrin is up on a hillside in an apple orchard with blooming trees, very nice. He is burying his wedding ring at his wife's apple tree grave. And Alana shows up.
I never imagined you a gardener.
It's not a garden, it's a burial ground. My family, when each one was laid to rest, it was with an apple blossom seed in their hand.
Who does this tree belong to?
My wife, Leda. I missed her burial. It hurts and comforts me to see how her tree has thrived in my absence.
And then Alana says that, well, where I come from, we take the ashes of our dead loved ones and we mix it with water and clay and wear it on our faces like skin until the grief seeps in. Perrin wonders if she's gonna get herself another warder, and she's like, it's not that simple. She's like, I've had lots of warders before. She's like, but there was a special connection between the three of us, you know. Me and Maxim, we were the fire, and Yvonne knew exactly how to keep us tempered, you know. And she goes, when one in a couple dies, the other is left to grieve. She's like, but when one of three is gone, who owns that grief? And we're left with that profound question. And on its own, again, I can like things about this on its own. She does raise an interesting dynamic that happens with grief after a loss like this occurs. So I don't know anybody in a throuple or more, but I do know of families where a child has died or a spouse has died, and it destroys the family that is left behind, because usually there is there's a misalignment in the way that grief happens, and an inability to accept that it's okay for there to be different ways that grief happen. For instance, if a child dies. This is the worst. If a child dies, one person is honoring and keeping the memory of that child alive by continuing to mourn and constantly feeling this pain and just being buried in it. And just like, I cannot let go of my child, because if I do, where did the love go? It was just gone. And the other side of that is the person who goes through the grieving, but then stops earlier and tries to move on, pushing through to get back to life. And it's not necessarily believed as like, I'm just going to throw away the memory of my child, it didn't matter. But usually it's, if I'm just sitting here being sad, I don't think this is what this is not a way to honor the life of this lost one. The argument that I've heard that is just so nice is that feeling pain and never getting over that pain is not the evidence that you still love this person. And when that pain is gone, it means you've somehow stopped loving this person. And I think that's a very difficult truth to accept for some people, that if you do not feel that pain anymore, it means that you somehow stopped loving that person. And it can cause you, if you're trying to move on or feeling tempted to move on, you feel guilty, because if I'm not hurting, how am I loving that person I've lost still? But the thing is that feeling that pain and continuing to be in that pain, that is not a way to honor the life of that person. It certainly wouldn't make that person happy to know that this is going on. In fact, it's almost a way of, well, I'm going to destroy my life now so that this person knew I loved them. But there's no way for that person to know anymore, not in this life anyway. This difficulty in understanding that these are two different ways of viewing how I honor the life of the person before, or how I keep that love alive, can cause parents who've lost a child to divorce, families to break up, because they cannot fathom how the other person is loving that lost person by mourning the way that they are mourning, or by moving on the way that they are moving on. And so this is an interesting discussion here. The problem I have with this is that if we take the book into consideration, this should have been Perrin's moment. Perrin should have come home to discover that his family was killed because of him. In his absence, his family was killed. And it hurts even more when he finds out about how Egwene was writing home to tell everybody, I'm safe, I'm fine. So his family died never knowing what happened to him. And he never bothered to tell them. It was like double whammy the hurt. This was a big moment for him. And for me, looking back on his grand story, it seemed to serve as a catalyst for him being launched into protector of the town, because he has no family there anymore. So now he is going to step up and protect the town and shield them and make sure that they survive, like what he wished he would have done for his family. That's more subtext than on the forefront in his story. But yeah, so if we're going to have Perrin rising to become a leader in this town, we're spending this time focusing on Alanna and her issues. In the book, Alanna was just there with Varen. She had been sent by the tower to try to find if there's some more girls in this town that can channel. And she doesn't seem to explain why the heck she's here. We'll get to that. But the thing is this should have been a moment for developing Perrin and sort of getting him into a state of preparedness for, you are going to become the leader of the two rivers. Like, he is literally going to be regarded as the lord of the realm by the end of all of this. And we didn't do that. We spent this Perrin moment talking about Alanna like she's some important character. And in the show, yes, she has been set up as she's a very important character, but in the grand scheme of the whole story, unless we are giving Alanna much more importance in the grand story, this really should have been Perrin's. He's more important of a character than she is. And just like with Rand being among the Aiel and not getting any time talking to the other chiefs or whatever, we don't have Perrin having a moment where he's, okay, if we're going to do it the show, where he's grieving his wife and realizing his family has had to leave home. Should not happen. And the place is basically left without a leader or without leadership, because you've got a lot of the father figures who were part of the leadership in this town are gone to protect his family. He's responsible for all of this. It could have been that. This should have been his moment. Oh, anyway, I think I've said all I need to say on this. Gotta move on. No, wait, we're not gonna have, like, I also have to mention, so Alana in this did say that Maxime and I were the fire and Yvonne knew how to temper us. Well, remember way back, Maxime was not in this situation because he liked Alana. He was in this because he was in love with Yvonne. So he should not want to be here anymore. And she agreed with everybody to shut him out of the trio most of the time, emotionally. Like he was not as connected to all of them. So when she says the fire, what does she even mean by that? We should have, when she said that, been able to go, I get it, I see that. But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that she and Maxime and him had this thing where the two of them were like full of passion and spitting fire and whatnot. And Yvonne was the one who kept them together because he was, you know, working between the two of them. We didn't see that, so I'm just confused. It really did seem like, especially after that conversation with Lan at the well when they were visiting Alana's family, that Maxime was really just here because he wanted to be with Yvonne. He didn't want to be around Alana. And there was no indication that it was because they were so passionately in love with each other that they often fought. It was more like, I'm just here because Yvonne is here. And I don't want to be part of the two of them. Like, it's weird.
Just one game of Maiden's Kiss, and you can go back to your squiggles.
Unless you lose, then you'll be dead.
Sorry, I really must finish this chapter on my Nynaeve.
Absolutely not.
We'll go easy on you for your first time.
Who says it's my first time?
Enough with the dirty sword play.
It's not dirt. It's the blood of the only man I've ever loved.
So this is just basically put in here as a transition from let's get a little information about Loyal, a little information checking in with Maxime, and then we get Perrin walking in with everybody because somebody showed up into town. Or sorry, it's not Perrin who walks in, it's villagers. They arrive to tell everyone that Matt's mother and sisters have been arrested by the White Cloaks because Matt's father helped Perrin's family escape. And we get from this that Lord Luke, who is there, and he's a pretty important character in the books, and there's some girl with him there as well, dark-haired girl, that they both, everybody's like, this is Lord Luke, and Perrin's like, who the heck's Lord Luke? And he's introduced as well, you know, when the White Cloaks were here, these guys are hunters for the Horn, and they happen to be in the area, and Lord Luke is like, yeah, I've had some experience with the White Cloaks before. So basically it's implied that he has kind of helped the Two Rivers town to defend themselves against the White Cloaks, sort of. Anyway, Perrin wants to know where the White Cloaks camp is, and seems like Lord Luke is not going to let him know. But that's when the short, dark-haired girl speaks up and says, oh, they're over at this place or whatever. See, I do like that we have her kind of noticing Perrin and seeing that people are defending him, because everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's Perrin, Perrin Ibarra, the Ibarra boy is here. And Lord Luke seems to be resistant to him at first, but she sees something about Perrin and wants to give him this information that he wants. This is, of course, Fael, who meets up with Perrin in a town in book 3. It's when they're following Rand, trying to figure out where he's gotten off to, because Rand ran off and they're pretty sure he went off to Tyr to collect Calendor or whatever, so they're gonna go try and find that. And he gets followed by Fael, who thinks that, you know what, I'm trying to find the Horn of Valir, and I think that these guys, they're onto something. There's something about them. And so she tags along, and then she and Perrin end up spending quite a lot of time together. They eventually are in this almost love sort of relationship. Perrin is a bit resistant. She's a bit more like pushing it. And it's not until she falls into a trap that was originally set for Moraine, and Perrin has to rescue her. And this is all in the dream world, basically. And so he goes into the dream world and rescues her. Basically, they've taken where they met there, and they're moving it to here to the Two Rivers. And it's a bit awkward that we are going to introduce a romance at all when he's just buried his wife's ring. We did not see him actually get over his wife's death. We barely even saw him mourning her at all. We had like one flashback of, not even a flashback, where he had a nightmare of her being eaten by wolves. And that's basically it. Then we saw him sending her ring off on a boat or on a little floaty thing, but then changing his mind and taking it back. And then here he buries the ring. There's just been very little attention given to him getting over his wife. Like, there should be something to happen to make him get over it. And then the thing is that later on in this season, we're gonna see that they kind of use Fail to do that. Like, she gives him the, hey, she went out fighting because she wanted to fight. Like, you shouldn't dishonor her courageous act by like continuing to mourn her forever. And then next thing you know, they're about to bang. Like, like that should have been the thing that he heard a long time ago and getting over it from there. And then by the time he gets to this stage in his life, he's more prepared for it mentally because he has processed and gotten over and he's heard the things that he needs to hear. There's a lot of mixing up of the phases of, not even the phases, the stages of progress in character development. And when you mix it up, like the thing that we did with Min and why she came to the tower, and then Elida going, you could use your power for good, and her going, the whole reason I came to the tower was to do good. And here with this, when you mix it up, it feels very disorganized. It doesn't make sense. To me, this whole series, this whole show lacks organization and distillation. Those are two very, very important things to keeping your character or keeping your audience invested in your character and their conflicts. When you're jumping around all over the place like this, there's no progress to go on. You're not going on a journey with your character. Random things are happening to your character and your character is reacting to them. It is not nearly as engaging. This is actually something that you learn early in writing, is that you have to have a proactive character with motivation that drives their actions. And I'm just not seeing that most of the time with these characters. And half the time their actions don't really fit what their motivations should be. Next scene, we cut to Dane Bornhold, who is getting drunk. So this is the first time that we're seeing him since the events of the ending in season 2, where his father was killed by Perrin because his father killed a wolf who was attacking Valda. So the White Cloaks have just captured Matt's mother and 2 sisters. And Valda shows up to talk to Dane and is like, hey, I want to interrogate them. And Dane is like, no, we're not going to, I don't agree with your methods and we're not doing that here. And he theorizes that I've got Natty and the girls. Eventually, Perrin is going to come here to get them. This is a pretty bold assumption on his part, but he does let Valda know, I've sent for reinforcements, and if those reinforcements get here before Perrin shows up, then fine, I will let you interrogate them. But now, this assumption on Dane's part that if I've captured Matt's mother and 2 sisters, Perrin will show up. I'm just confused how he figured out that Perrin was close to Matt. And so taking Matt's mother and sisters would be important. Like, there was some pre-planning I can see on this part in this story in this season. Because in the beginning, not the beginning, but in the middle of season 1 or ending, whatever, Perrin is given by Matt the poster of himself, and Matt is kind of like, give this to my sisters and tell them I'm, brave or whatever, and, look out for them or whatever. So Matt is charging Perrin with the duty of looking after his mother and sisters and whatever. So that's setting this moment up. The problem is that Dane, knowing this, is contrived. Unless they're trying to hint that somebody in the town told him, but if that's the case, they really should indicate that in some way. Instead, he just knew that if I capture Matt's family, then Perrin is gonna come to me. How does he know they were close? Anyway, moving on. Side note, I'm not gonna lie, drunk and pouty Dane is kind of hot. So, I've got something else to look forward to, other than just Lan's ass and Elida's voice.
Delicious.
Next, we have a scene which we're gonna have almost the exact same scene later, and it's awkward. So we're outside of the Wine Spring Inn. All the villagers have gathered to talk about the White Cloaks. not leaving them alone. And Perrin is there, and he's like, I want to turn myself in so that people can deal with the real problem, the Trollocs. And then Egwene's mother steps up and says that after the White Cloaks have Perrin, they're gonna leave. And then what? We won't even have our pride when the Trollocs attack and we have to defend ourselves against them. It's a weak argument. What she should have been saying is what she said earlier. We're getting a repeat of what she said before, which is basically that if the White Cloaks leave after they've got you, we won't have them to help us. It's more selfish, but she's bringing up the Two Rivers people are very honorable and stubborn. That's like their two main qualities is they have honor, they are there for each other, and they are stubborn as hell. So this works to exemplify their character. So at the end of that, all of the villagers kind of agree that, okay, we're not going to turn Perrin in, and they sort of disperse. Now remember that. It's night. They've all gathered outside the Wine Spring Inn, had a discussion about Perrin turning himself in and deciding, nope, he's not going to turn himself in, and then they disperse. I do have to note that the Trollocs are known for attacking at night. They don't like the sun. So it is a little dangerous that everybody's hanging around outside at night. And these are villagers who live on farms way out there, and then they came into town for this meeting. So they're going to go back in the dark when the Trollocs attack the most. It's just not... doesn't really make sense that they have this meeting at night. The next scene, we've got more Alana stuff.
What are you doing up here? There's food downstairs.
If I have to eat another turnip, I pray to the light I choke on it.
Maxim.
Why won't you turn off the bond, Alana? I never used to keep it on like this.
Because there are Trollocs and White Cloaks everywhere. We are in danger.
But I can't take it. I can't. I can feel that you feel nothing, Yvonne.
She, remember, used to just keep the bond shielded from him. First of all, it's weird that he calls it turn off the bond. Just shield me, please. I don't want to feel the bond right now. And now it's weird that she's keeping it on all the time. She's like, I'm keeping it on because the Trollocs are here and the White Cloaks and it's dangerous. Well, just stay around him. Just don't go wandering. You don't want to be caught by Trollocs and you don't want to be caught by White Cloaks. So the two of them should be together all the time anyway. And apparently she can unshield the bond very quickly, like at the flip of a switch, basically. So it wouldn't be a big deal if she just kept it shut off. They're probably sleeping next to each other. So if somebody's going to attack one of them, the other one will be there anyway to sense it. So it just doesn't make sense. He's not used to having the bond on anyway, or feeling the bond anyway, because they used to be shielded all the time. So he's begging her, please stop forcing me to feel what you're feeling when you don't need to. And she's like, no. I actually feel bad for Maxime. He should be asking to be released from the bond permanently. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I wish he would have done that. I don't think they actually take this conversation to that stage at all in this season, but I wish that they did. Because it would fall in line with the whole reason he was in this relationship in the first place was because of Yvonne. But yeah, so he's upset that she is keeping the bond on, not shielded, and she feels nothing. He's like, I'm disturbed that you feel nothing, like Yvonne didn't matter. And she's like, she's basically implying that she is not letting herself grieve because he is grieving so much that it's choking her. She's like, I wake up in the middle of the night and it's choking me. And he's like, it should. It was Yvonne. This is actually, again, in the bubble of this show, this actually works. This is actually a good, like, this is how it probably would go down. You would have these people disagreeing with how the other is feeling this. It is a little odd that she feels nothing. Like, he senses that she feels nothing. Even when you are suppressing something, you are still feeling something. This would also mean that we should at some point see her let it crash down on her, because if it doesn't, there's going to be negative side effects to this. This is why we say you shouldn't push things down. You should not suppress things, because it comes out in an uncontrolled way, in a very negative way most of the time when it does come out. And I don't think we get that. I've seen enough of this season that I don't think we're gonna have that moment. Anyway, Maxime argues that he wants to be hunting Liandrin, like that's what we need to do. And then he says, instead, you took us here to the Two Rivers. Why? And she doesn't give him a reason. And I'm going, how could this happen? This is not how the warder bond is between Aes Sedai and warders, from what I understand in the books. They are very close Aes Sedai and Warders very close. They are each other's confidants. Like, they might not trust anybody else in the world, but they will trust their warder. And for her to have taken him here and not given any explanation, he should be asking to be released from the bond. He should be suspecting she's a dark friend or something at this point, because what the hell? Why are we here? It does not make sense. She's basically using him as a slave. You're gonna come with me and you don't have a right to know why we're here. And she's not feeling anything after Yvonne has died. He should be asking to be released from the bond permanently. In the next scene, we are in the Wine Spring sort of dining area, you know, that place where Rand and Egwene were banging in season 1. Anyway, they're in the dining area, and the short, dark-haired hunter girl approaches Perrin and introduces herself.
You know, I've never seen someone try to turn themselves in and fail.
So you're with him?
Only by chance. I came here looking for the Horn of Valir. Heard of it? I see.
I'm familiar.
There's been much talk about you in your absence, Perrin Aybara.
And very little of you. Don't even know your name.
I call myself Mandar.
I'm sorry, it's just my friend Lan, it's what he...
Iwat means blade in the old tongue. So choose your words carefully.
It's what he calls his horse. It's a good name. Oh, did you, choose it for the hunt?
Perhaps you should try again to turn yourself in.
And they do follow the book with the introduction. She goes, "My name is Mandarb," and Perrin laughs at that. And the reason he laughs and brings it up, and he says, "Well, see that horse over there? That is my friend Lan's horse, and its name is Mandarb." That's why he thought it was funny. And so then she goes off and has to like think of another name and comes back with, "Well, you can call me Fail," which means falcon. But so here they're kind of following that, except that I don't think we ever once said Lan's horse's name at all in this show. As far as the show is concerned, I don't think we even know that Lan had a specific horse that was his, that was on any kind of long, extensive journey. We saw the horse when he went to Two Rivers, and when he went to go find the camp of all the Aes Sedai, and then we had the Logain thing happen. And then when they arrived at the Aes Sedai Tower, and then later when they go to the Waygates, and then he and Moraine basically send the horses off on their way. And we haven't seen the horses since. Now remember that Perrin wasn't even around for most of that, but no matter what, we did not see that Lan's horse had a name and that anybody knew about it. So this is a joke that lands flat on the audience and literally has to be explained to us at the time that the joke is told, so that way we can get it. So it doesn't quite work here. But anyway, not really much to say about this. The dialogue flow actually worked, and it managed to slip in information in a way that didn't feel like it was so obvious that they were just trying to explain something. So, you know, her bit about, "I'm not with Lord Luke, I just came in with him." Unfortunately, this information is almost completely irrelevant to anything else because Lord Luke is not doing much. In the books, he is basically the leader of the Two Rivers, and then Perrin comes in and people start sort of gravitating towards him as the leader, and it pits him against Lord Luke. And then we get a whole lot of other stuff with him that doesn't really need to come in here, but basically, this bit of her saying, "I'm not really with Lord Luke," didn't need to be here because I don't think Lord Luke needs to be here. So anyway, and I'm not saying that in the book, I'm saying in the show because they don't do much with Lord Luke. Unless they're going to in these last couple episodes, I don't know. I don't think they are though. He really hasn't done anything except just stand there and be introduced as Lord Luke. But after she walks off, Loial comes and sits next to Perrin and is like, "What are we gonna do now?" And Perrin says that they're gonna go save Matt's family, which I like. And so my expectation is that the very next scene is gonna be him and Loial like setting off to go and rescue Matt's family. That would make sense, right? Or at least making plans to do that, trying to do, you know, get prepared to go and do that. Because as far as they know, Matt's experience with the White Cloaks is the White Cloaks torture their prisoners. So he thinks they're being tortured right now. But anyway, okay, so that's what I expect in the next scene. But that's not the next scene that we get. The next scene is just like that scene we had a little bit earlier where everybody's outside talking. So Perrin goes outside and notices all the villagers leaving. And I'm going, they just left. They were all out there talking and then they left. And now you're out there surprised that they're leaving after 2 other scenes have taken place. What? This is just very sloppy. This is extremely awkward. I think that the previous scene should have taken place in the daytime, and then this one, so that way they're not dispersing like back to their villages or their farms. They're hanging out in the village doing stuff. And then this one can happen at night, where he comes out and goes, "Where are you guys going?" Although it doesn't make sense for them to go back to their farms at night, but But this is an iconic moment and an important moment for Perrin in the books. All of the farmers are living spread out, right? And their farms are getting attacked by Trollocs. Not a whole lot of them at a time, but enough that it's just like it's destroying the families. Like people are dying. And he confronts them with, "Hey, if you're out spread out here and spread out, a couple of you here, couple of you here, couple of you here, couple of you here, of course the Trollocs are going to outnumber you and get you. Like you're not going to have much of a chance. But if we're all together, we're much safer." And the resistance, this is in the book, the resistance that he gets is, "Hey, my farm is my livelihood. If I don't have crops, like what am I going to do? My family going to starve?" And Perrin comes back with the best argument. He says, "Look, you can regrow your crops. Like, so what if you lose them? Big deal. But can you regrow your son or your daughter?" Like he points to a kid and he's like, "Can you regrow one of those?" And it suddenly dawns on the Emmons Fielders and the Two Rivers people that, you know what, I can't regrow a child. Like, is that what I am risking sacrificing? I'm risking sacrificing my child for the farm. And I believe he points out at one point that when there's no people at some of these farms, the Trollocs don't seem to attack. So it's almost like the Trollocs are not after the farms. They're not after the crops or whatever. They're after the people. He's able to understand why they wanted to go back to the farms and then come up with a better reason for why they shouldn't. Like, what is something that these people would keep them here and cause them to abandon their farms? Because remember, he grew up among these people, so he knows them. But in the show, he comes out and everybody's going off to their farms and like, "We're going home. We're going to go protect our farms." And Perrin's like, "What are you talking about? Like, what about the Trollocs?" And he's like, "Am I the only one who remembers what it was like on Beltane?" Like, yeah, that's also a good point. But they're like, "Well, my sons are going to stand watch up on the roof and we're going to bar the doors and we'll be fine." And Perrin's like, "By the time you see the Trollocs coming, it'll be too late because they can see way better at night in the dark than people can."
Then what do we do?
If there's 10 here or 20 there, and you're just game for Trolloc taking, or for White Cloaks. But if there are hundreds of us together, then we have a chance. If we stay here, all of us, we have a chance.
The thing, I just don't like this speech being the one that gains the loyalty of the people, because the people were acting stupid. And in the book, the people had a very good reason for wanting to protect their farms. It was their livelihood. If we don't have our farms, we die. But what Perrin proposes is, would you rather you lose your child than your farm? Like, is that a preference? Because that's what is going to most likely happen. Is that a good risk for you? And they're like, "Okay, no, I would rather have my child than my farm." But there's still this issue of, will I lose the farm? And then that's when he brings up, well, hey, the farms seem to be left alone when there's no people there. Like, you are taking the thing that they're attacking away from there by leaving the farms. So that's fine. But even if you do lose it, you can still regrow your crops. And he proposes the situation is, if you want to continue living and you want your children to keep on living, staying out on your farms is the worst idea. And everybody's like, okay, you're right. So the people weren't presented as stupid or making a rash decision. They were doing something that to him and to the readers we understood. They wanted to save their farms and their crops, and he gave them a reason. He presented to them the cost of doing that, and the cost was far higher than they were willing to pay in order to save their farms. So it was a missed opportunity, and it felt a little like the show made the farmers stupid in order to have them rally around Perrin. But what are you gonna do at this point?
Your people listened. They're staying, but I have a suspicion you won't. Who are they to you, these Cothans?
Friends, family, in a way.
Are they worth dying for? That's what will happen if you go for the White Cloaks. If you try to take them back.
Nobody's getting hurt. I'll make sure of it.
Is that a plan or a hope? You'll need both if you want to lead.
I don't. Wait. What's your real name? Please.
Payu. It means falcon. So you see, Perrin Aybara, hunting's in my blood.
Now, this is a nice, sweet moment, But in Perrin's big story, it sure is weird. It's weird that he is making the first flirtatious move. Like, in their dynamic, she's been making the first move first. Now he's making the move like, hey, wait, don't go. In the place where he killed his wife. Literally the room where he killed his wife. It's weird. And it's doubly weird that this is his first time coming home. He has not gotten over his wife's death. I don't care what people say. He has not processed it. There's no reason for him to be over it. And here he is flirting with this girl. It's weird. So that's the end of that scene. Let's move on to the last bit, which is Liandrin. All right. So Liandrin and her posse are in Tanchico, and this place is disgusting. And I really did not enjoy the costumes here. Now, one of the highlights of this show for me has been the intricacy in the design of the costumes. Whether they work for the show or not, I'm at the point where I don't care. I'm just really pleased to see that a lot of effort and work has been put into making something spectacular. And the costumes of the Aes Sedai have been pretty much, for the most part, spectacular in how they are constructed. This, however, is just gross. Maybe if I stopped and paid attention, I could appreciate little details in these costumes. I'm sure that all the beading took forever because I know that it would had to have been done by hand. I have had to do this for people before and it's not fun, it takes forever. I just don't like the way that these costumes look. I think that they are very gaudy and gross looking. They're not complimentary in any way. So they've arrived in town, and I do have to kind of wonder, they stand out a lot in this gross town that they're walking around in Tanchico. But anyway, they go into what I'm assuming is the estate that Liandrin grew up in or was sold to or whatever. She was married into this family that owned this estate. She barges in on a wedding, and they're like, who the heck are you? And she asks the name of the groom, and he introduces himself, and she's like, oh, I know who you are. Like, you are the great-grandson of the man who I used to call husband, who kept me as a child bride locked in a dark, damp cellar until I had a baby, and then he didn't want me anymore. And she lifts the veil of the bride and is horrified to discover that it is another child bride. And when the groom confronts her, basically trying to get her to leave, she turns around and, with the one power, lifts him into the air and extracts his heart. This is obviously done to be shocking and grotesque. And it ended up feeling just kind of over the top and weird. I mean, I'm getting major Temple of Doom vibes. I really wanted that heart to be beating, but it wasn't. I guess it just stopped the moment she ripped it out, but okay. So she has her posse kill everybody at the party. And then she sees that the child bride is terrified and has crawled off into a corner, and she goes to comfort the child bride and like, no, everything's gonna be okay. And she calls over Naomi. And remember, Naomi is the one who did the brain scramble to Adelaide and thought she did it to Varen, but obviously didn't, because Varen stopped it. But she's trying to console this child bride who's just absolutely terrified. And she asks Naomi to like take away her memory. And Naomi's like, she's gonna lose more than her memories of just today. And Liandrin basically says that like some things are just better not to remember, and has Naomi wipe out this girl's memory. You see that blood comes out of her nose. And I mean, it looks like this girl is almost a vegetable afterwards, but we never see her again. So I don't know like what happened to her. After this, we cut to Liandrin down in the cellar, where she, just in the scene before, explained she was kept as essentially a child sex slave. And she is painting that symbol as she is crying, painting that symbol on the floor, which is where her dead son would have been, or where her dead son would have been born. So we know that the baby was born there, and that's why she is painting it here. And we can see that on the walls there are claw marks, like she had scratched through the stone at some point with her nails, and we can hear her memories of being assaulted as a child happening, and it's awful. I do like that she is sobbing uncontrollably as she is painting this symbol on the floor. Nobody's doing a bad job in any of their performances in this show. I wish that the writing gave them something stronger to stand up on, though. But then she goes back upstairs to meet with her posse again. And they're in some sort of a library in this house. And she goes over to Naomi, and Naomi is reading in a book about the bracelet that they've taken and, you know, that she's got. And she says that it's just like a Shan-Chan Adom, like the bracelet of an Adom, but none of my channeling is working on it. And Liandrin goes, that's because it is not an Adom for a woman, it is an Adom for a man. And she says that the collar is somewhere here in Tanchico, and we are going to find the Dragon Reborn. It's a little weird that Liandrin knew all of this, and yet she was having her team researching about what it is. If she already knew what it is, why did she have them searching for this stuff? It's a little weird, okay? And it's also like, what reason did she give her posse for why they were going to Tanchico with this thing? Like, remember, she gave Naomi the orders, make sure you get that thing and get it out of the tower. And then she did, and here they are. And she didn't tell them what it was or why they needed it. And then she had them do all this research on what it is and all that. And it's weird. And this is all stuff that we already learned from Elayne and Nynaeve. But anyway, I don't think you needed to have this here. This scene was completely unnecessary. I think the only reason they had this scene is so that we can get to this little reveal at the end of this scene, which is that the servant, who you didn't really notice a whole lot when you first walk into the scene with Liandrin, the servant who walks out is Mogideon in disguise. And as she's walking away, she looks very pleased with the information that she has collected just by being here. And we hear her voice saying, softly, softly from the shadows, which is what she was saying at the end of episode 1. And that is it for this episode. I think that I've said everything I need to say about this episode. I mean, as sad as it is for me to say, I mean, there's so much work that has gone into the production of this show. The writing and the construction of the storytelling fails on many levels. It is very disappointing. And because of its failures, I find this show quite boring. I have to get my entertainment out of the isolation of small bubble moments, and that's no way to be invested in a show. Like, I mean, I'm not excited when episodes come out because I know that I'm gonna be disappointed in the overall construction of it, and I'm just gonna have to like pretend everything that happened before a moment and everything that happens after a moment, I'm gonna have to pretend those don't exist so I can just enjoy a moment for itself like this. At least I'm coming up with few complaints about the logic of the progression of conversation. I'm not seeing as much skipping around, but maybe it's because I didn't pay attention to it as much because I just didn't care. So I don't know. Anyway, that is it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Even if it's just with an emoji, it really does help this video in the algorithm. Or if you're feeling super generous, check out my Patreon, Ko-fi, or hit the money heart thanks button down below. Remember that if the money heart thanks button is not there, it means that Amazon has claimed this video. And as they have done with every other video that they have claimed, they're most likely claiming me in front of my bookshelf more than they are claiming their own footage, and I just don't know how to fix that. I do my absolute best. I think this is all fair use because I have dramatically changed and altered the footage, and I'm only showing what I need for context for the comments that I'm making, but whatever. But if you do go to Patreon or Ko-fi, you can become a subscriber, or you can leave me a one-time tip. And I guess that's it. Be good to yourself.